My name is Tarago. I'm a fighter from the Soviet Union. I fight all my life and I never lose. Soon I fight Rocky Balboa and the world will see his defeat. Soon the whole world will know my name.
Rocky IV.
Rising up, back on the street. Did my time, took my chances.
Old Survivor. You know, the guy, I'm pretty sure the guy that wrote Eye of the Tiger was also the guy from the band The Ides of March who wrote I'm Your Vehicle, Baby.
Oh, yeah.
Take you anywhere you want to go, which is in Lockup.
Yeah.
Another classic Stallone.
Oh, that's probably where Stallone wanted a Queen song. He wanted maybe Another One Bites the Dust, I think. And he couldn't get it for Rocky III, so that's when he went to Survivor and got Eye of the Tiger. And then maybe that's why he had that affiliation.
Yeah, maybe.
You know?
I mean, Ides of March, that was the 60s, but he probably obviously knew that dude because Survivor also does a song for the Rocky IV soundtrack.
That is a movie I haven't seen in years. Lock-Up. Everyone always, you ever see Lock-Up? I'm like, yeah. Every time I bring Donald Sutherland up, they're like, Lock-Up? I'm like, yeah.
I'm surprised because I don't know anybody that even knows the movie Lock-Up in my personal life.
Yeah, I do. When I bring Donald Sutherland up, that's like, there's a Stallone movie. I'm like, Lock-Up? And they're like, yeah, he's a really sadistic warden, whatever. If I'm bringing up Patrick McGowan from Escape from Alcatraz, they're like, you ever see, Donald Sutherland from that movie?
I feel like
but then they get it confused with Van Damme. They're like, is it a Van Damme movie or is it a Stallone? I'm like, yeah, they're thinking of that. And I'm like, no, it's Lock-Up. It's Lock-Up.
I feel like Lock-Up used to come on like the Sunday night movie on network TV sometimes.
Tonight, Stallone is in some shit with Tom Sizemore and he goes to jail.
Yeah, I remember we'd a sweet mate that we had in freshman year had never seen Lock-Up, and I was like, oh, I love that movie, and we watched it, and he's like, oh, this is like a real movie. It's kind of like in the midst of Stallone's like action movies, but it was really trying to be kind of a real movie with score by Bill Conti, who also scored all the Rocky movies except for this one.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But we do have a guy coming back on the podcast who scores this movie because the next year he does a chart topper, Transformers the movie. Vince DiCola.
Yeah, I love Vince.
I love the Transformers. You'll be surprised how many people love the Transformers, the movie soundtrack. Aside from that weird connection of Boogie Nights, which was, I remember watching it. I've only seen Boogie Nights once, but I remember watching it freshman year in college. And once he starts singing that, I'm like, he's singing "You've Got the Touch," and I had to explain the context of that. That's like so weird how they got. Maybe it was Vince DiCola. It's like, yeah, you can use that too. But at the time, I'm like, are they Transformer the movie fans? Because that's a great reference.
Stan Bush. Stan Bush made. I don't think he sings anything on this soundtrack, but he does a lot of soundtrack stuff. I think he sings Kumite in Bloodsport.
Wow.
Or at least he has a song on that soundtrack. He has a song on the Kickboxer soundtrack. And I feel like, now I'm going off the top of my head, so I could be wrong, but dating back to our Over the Top episode, I feel like there was some kind of story where either Stan Bush or Sammy Hagar did a song in the movie Over the Top, and for some reason, when it was released on a soundtrack, it was Stan Bush and not Sammy Hagar, or something like that. Or maybe I'm thinking of something from one of the Van Damme movies. I could be wrong. I'm going down a questionable alley right now.
Yeah. Remember we walked by Stan Bush at that convention in Rhode Island.
Oh,
he was there. You know.
It's a shame Vince wasn't there.
Yeah. I was going to get my you got my Transformers the movie soundtrack CD signed, but then it was just awkward. I
found that people love the soundtrack, but they don't love the score, because when we were doing the conventions to help try to sell my book and I was selling records, I always had the Vince DiCola score on vinyl for Transformers. And everybody like, oh, is this the soundtrack with the songs? I'm like, no, it's the Vince DiCola score. They're like, okay, I don't want that.
That's a shame because I like it.
I like it. I love Vince DiCola, and I'm going to talk a shit ton about Vince DiCola later, because I have my Rocky IV and Transformers scores on vinyl signed by Vince. And when we get to the soundtrack, we'll talk more about Vince, because this is one of my favorite scores of all time. And for those who blindly pushed play on this and haven't put together what we're doing today, we're doing first of the year, nice cold wintry movie. When here in the up northeast, we got a major snowstorm coming real soon.
Yeah,
we decided to get ahead of it and do one of the great snowy winter movies of all time, other than John Carpenter's The Thing, Rocky IV.
And you've also got this is Saturday Night Movie Sleepovers, and that's Jay Blake. And
this is Dion Baia.
Just really changing it up there. People are like, what? Yeah, Rocky IV. Man, this was big when it came out, wasn't it now? I hadn't seen it in years, but watching it again, it brought back all those memories, all those montage memories, you know. And then I didn't see the 2021 director's cut, but luckily we watched some of the alternate scenes afterward.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed all the alternate scenes he put back in. I think they added a lot of context, but from what I read, I did not like that he cut the robot out. I might be the only one, but no, I like the robot.
I think a lot of people were missing the robot. Well, that's another thing.
I think that he just didn't get it back from James Brown.
We'll dive deep into the director's cut as well. But before we start talking about Rocky IV, I do want to just bring up a little bit of business, because we ended with It's a Wonderful Life last year, and we didn't really do a whole lot of stuff last year, but Dion and I were getting kind of in the mood to talking about maybe doing the show more regularly, and we're starting to throw the episodes up on YouTube, and we're trying to get back into it. And I was getting really excited about it, which, as Dion will attest, like, I don't talk all excitedly about the podcast very often anymore. But I was into it. And then some asshole left a negative review about our It's a Wonderful Life episode on Apple, and it totally fucking made me not want to do this podcast anymore.
I missed that. I did not know that even occurred.
So we're still going to try to go on with our plans to get back into the swing of things. But I got to say, it was a real buzzkill. And it was like, oh, well, I don't know. I don't want to do this anymore. People are going to be poop heads to us.
Well, I guess that's what happens with the fame. You're going to get the negative people. So there's nothing you can do except just, ignore them.
Yeah, but it's like,
was there any? Since I haven't read it, is there any?
It was
credence
just
to what he said, or is it just like Dion sucks?
He
like
did
usual.
He did give us 3 stars, which I guess is nice. But it was all about, like, they're talking about the differences, but why there's more of one version, and like these. He basically was saying we're idiots. He's like, if you're going to cover a movie, you could at least look up the Wikipedia page. And I felt like, I was like, who is this guy? You know, like we just
We
gave
did
you
look
like
up the
3
Wikipedia
hours
page.
of information.
Which was off the Wikipedia page and off of
And,
everything else.
you
That's
know,
out
we
there.
didn't watch the edited version. We watched the regular one. So we didn't really do a whole lot of research on the edited one.
Well, what's the research to do aside from it's colorized and it's? Oh no, it's not colorized, but it's.
I guess it was edited because, and also, you know, Wikipedia is not the end all be all. Like when I went through and I saw it, I read that passage on Wikipedia. I went and I looked at the, the sources that they cite.
Yeah.
And a lot of it's kind of like conjecture. It's a lot of like hearsay, but it was like, what's the other one that's not, Mystery Science Theater, but there's like another one that does the same, that ripped off Mystery Science Theater.
Yeah, I don't know.
Where they do that, and I guess they wanted to show it, and they ended up cutting out everything that some lawyer thought was not public domain
Okay.
because the book is not public domain, but the movie is. Or
But
something.
I brought that. I brought all that up.
But that's the reason why it's edited.
Oh, because they had to cut out the stuff that's still copyrighted.
Yeah.
Yeah, I brought up there's a lawsuit because the guy tried. We said that at the end of maybe he didn't listen to the whole podcast, but at the end of the podcast, we summed all that up, saying that even though the movie's public domain, what's his face renewed his copyright of the short story, which I read for the movie.
Yeah.
And
fucking
I think I
guy.
even gave a summation of the story too.
Yeah. Like, what more do you want, man? Like, we gave you 3 hours of, and we didn't even dilly-dally all that much in that episode.
No, it wasn't 40 minutes of us talking about a side story,
So
which we love.
if we don't do an episode regularly this year to our listeners that want this show, you can find that guy and blame him.
Or girl.
Look, I could take some negativity, but right when I'm trying to hype myself up to do Rocky 4.
Don't worry, Blake. You can do it, Blake. Don't worry.
I'm putting a lot of work into putting the show on YouTube. You know, like I got better things to do than that, but we're trying to do stuff here.
Uh-oh.
Get me all
Get you all riled up.
Get me all riled
Riled
That
up.
son of a bitch.
Spilling your Mega Joke Cola.
Anyway, Rocky 4.
I thought that was a pretty good episode we did on It's Wonderful Life.
What do we know?
Oh. Well, I didn't see that. Oh, well. Rocky 4.
Oh, Rocky 4.
This is one of your favorites, ain't it?
It is, yeah. Well, I mean, I make no secret about the fact that the Rocky movies are very near and dear to my heart, and that in recent years I've decided to take a stand on what my favorite movie of all time is, and it is, in fact, the original Rocky, 1976. And we did that one a long time ago, before Creed. That's how long ago we did that episode.
Oh, really? It seems like yesterday.
And that episode, I probably talk a little bit about how, for me, my journey with favoritism in the Rocky movies was 3 was my favorite for the longest time. Partially because it was just on TV all the goddamn time on WXXA 23 in the Albany area.
I think when we were younger, since it came out in 83 or so, it was on a lot. So I saw it a lot as a kid. Then, especially probably since Rocky 4 was then hitting the theaters, they started playing it again.
Yeah.
So yeah, that played a lot more. So I didn't see Rocky 1 or 2 till later on. 3 was the first one I'd seen.
I feel like when we were too young, not to have seen Rocky, because there's nothing particularly bad in it, but too young to really, really understand the first Rocky, I feel like it was on a lot. And then, preteen, tween ages. And then at some point, I just stopped seeing the first one. It just wasn't on very often. Rocky 3 was on a lot. And then eventually Rocky 4 started being on a lot in the 90s. And always loved the movies, as I longtime Sylvester Stallone fan. Back when VHS, when we were beginning collectors and movie fans, and you'd start collecting VHS. And as Dion knows, I'm a little bit of a crazy, completist. I got it's an addiction when it comes to collecting stuff. Although I'm glad to say I've really toned it down in my old age and my poor days. But I was like collecting I was getting every Stallone movie from Fist to Paradise Alley to
Victory,
to Victory to
Oscar,
everything on VHS. Rocky, all the Rockies, all the Rambos, obviously. Lock Up, as we said. And then at some point in the recent years, Rocky became my favorite movie. And that has a lot to do with that I hadn't seen it since I was a teenager, and then I caught it on Turner Classic Movies at the very beginning, like they're introducing it. And I was like, oh man, I'll watch Rocky. And at that point, I was pretty down and out of my luck, and I was like 29, 30.
Huge Joe Spinell fan at the time.
Of course, a longtime Joe Spinell fan. And I watched Rocky for the first time since I was like 16. And I was, like I said, 29 or 30. I was broke. I was out of work. I hadn't fulfilled any of my dreams. And all of a sudden it was like this movie was talking to me. Rocky was like 30. Rocky hadn't fulfilled any of his dreams.
Well, when I met you in college, you used to dress kind of like Rocky. We both had the leather jackets, but you kind of had the hat. You had the gait.
I went Rocky with it.
You know what I mean? You were like, you didn't talk like, but you were like, yeah, whatever, man.
And then, then I just watched the Rockies a lot over the last 10, 15 years, 20 years, whatever it is. And I used to talk to the beloved Hastings brothers about the Rocky movies a lot. And on drunken nights in Greenpoint, we would often get into Rocky discussions. And Rocky was my favorite. Dave had really loved Rocky Balboa, the sixth one. This was also pre-Creed. So at that point, it was the most recent Rocky-related movie. And Steve, his brother, always loved Rocky IV. And I have to admit, in more recent years, Rocky IV has kind of edged up for me in my lineup of Rocky movies. It's extremely watchable. It works on the emotional level that Rocky does, that all the Rocky movies do. Also because you've had the groundwork laid for you as an audience that you're already kind of emotionally connected to these characters. And as I've got into the film scoring stuff with Scored to Death, I've absolutely fallen in love with Vince DiCola's score for this movie. And so for those reasons, Rocky IV might be my second favorite Rocky movie in these days.
Well, I mean, I think Stallone did like an incredible feat in like around 2006 and 2007. I remember thinking like, I heard he was making a new Rocky and a new Rambo. I was like, wow, how do you get those two franchises out of the gutter? Because I liked Rambo 3, but a lot of people, shit on it. And then Rocky 5 kind of was a dud, and I've only seen it once, I think. And both those movies just hit it out of the park and really took him out of that like slump he was in. Because he was at that point where he was like he did a season or two of reality TV, and really put him back on the map doing all that himself. So it was almost like another comeback story for him. So I've only seen Rocky Balboa once, but I remember really liking it. I thought that was good at the time when he did it. So hats off to him for doing that son of a gun.
Yeah, he's certainly more than any like some semi-contemporary actor. There's no actor as associated with a character as he is with Rocky. There might have been back in the old days. I don't know. I mean, obviously, you could say, well, the Champ, or, the Tramp, the Charlie Chaplin Tramp character, but he wasn't really playing the same character in every movie. But if you watch the special features on the Blu-ray or DVD for Rocky Balboa, when they're in the Italian market in South Philadelphia filming, And they're not even like rolling the actual film. They're just filming like him, telling the DP where to put the camera, and he's walking around the market, and people are like, "Hey, Rock," and he's like, "Hey, how you doing?" like Rock, when Stallone is in Philadelphia and he's wearing that hat, to Philadelphians, he's Rocky, and it's not like, "Hey, it's Sylvester Stallone, can I get an autograph?" It's like, "Hey, Rock, how are you?"
It's like Kojak for people, like, yeah,
and so much so that they just put another Rocky statue up in Philadelphia. It's in the Philadelphia airport. And my brother owns a music venue in Philadelphia. He said when bands come in, that aren't from Philadelphia, when they come play the venue on tour, they ask two questions: where do I get a good cheesesteak, and where's the Rocky statue? Everybody wants to go see the Rocky statue.
Didn't he move it?
Well, originally they wanted to put it on the stairs in the art museum where the stairs lead up to in the Rocky movies. Didn't want it, so they put it up in front of the Spectrum, which was the sports arena where Rocky and Apollo fight in the second movie, I think. I guess they probably fight there. They fight there in the first movie too, but and then so it was sitting in front of that for the longest time, and then that got like closed and torn down, and then they moved it back to the art museum. And I don't think it's at the top of the steps. I think it's, if you're facing the museum, it's like off to the right before you get onto the steps.
It's in it's in the middle of the roundabout.
Yeah, I think this might have been the first Rocky movie I saw in the theater. I know for a fact I saw 5, but I think this might have been the first one. And I don't know. There's just a lot to talk about it. So what are your memories of seeing it?
Well, I think I saw it on TV because I remember this was a big year for Stallone because Rambo 2's out there, comes out in the summer, and then this comes out, I guess, what is that, in Thanksgiving time or 85. So this must have hit pay-per-view home box probably, I would say, early 86. So I remember seeing it on TV, seeing all Rocky 3 a lot, then seeing Rambo 2 a lot, and then seeing Rocky 4. So you're inundated with Stallone, and then Cobra's on at the time too. So there's a lot of like Sly hitting you from every direction. So, at that time, you still have the seismic powers of like Chuck Norris, Schwarzenegger, and Stallone before you have that second generation of Bruce Willis and Van Damme and Seagal and all those guys. But I remember seeing this when I lived in New Haven. So that was before age 7 or before. So that would have been, we moved in the summer of 86. So I had to see it right when it came out on the paid channels then. And it was very appealing back then because at that time I was all into all the missing and action movies that Chuck Norris was putting out, and then the American Ninja movies, and then Rambo 2, of course. So, seeing the Rocky movies on as well, I know who the guy is, and so, and then I, like, one of my biggest memories from Rocky 3 is him coming to, like, isn't there a statue of him in the movie that he throws something at or something?
Yeah, he throws his motorcycle helmet, which is the statue we were just talking about.
Oh, is it really? He actually uses that statue? It's in the movie. I didn't realize it breaks the fourth wall and it's in the movie.
It's in the fifth one. It's in the fifth one too.
Is it?
Well.
Yeah. So I remember that scene, and I thought that scene was in this movie. That's how long it's been since I've seen them.
It might be in the No Easy Way Out montage.
Yeah, I think you might be right, actually. But you could tell it's from the other movie because it's like a flash cut to it. But yeah, I remember seeing it back then and then being completely taken along for the ride, and then when Apollo gets killed and all that stuff and the drama of it, all that, and and then them going to the USSR, like, fuck this shit, we're gonna do it, East versus West, and how intimidating Drago is and stuff like that. I was all in, and that of course introduced us to Dolph Lundgren, who ended up doing Masters Universe a couple of years later. which we were big for our age group, even though that toy line was phasing out at the time. By the time that movie came out, which is a movie we covered on this podcast as well, and our inaugural episode is The Punisher, his version.
He's probably, I guess him and Stallone are now tied for the amount of times they've been on the show, right?
Maybe. But yeah, I don't. Well, I don't know. Yeah, maybe
we did the first Rocky. We did Over the Top, but I think this is the third Stallone movie.
No, we did Cliffhanger too.
Oh yeah, so Stallone still got a little bit of
over Dolph. Yeah, I've always wanted to do a Universal Soldier, so maybe we can
get Dolph back in here.
Yeah, I don't think we've done a Van Damme movie yet.
Yeah, I got Tony Burton.
The great Tony Burton,
who we did on a season Assault of Precinct 13 and Rocky. So he's a three-peat.
Yeah, and also shows up in The Shining. And then I felt like somebody else. We didn't know we haven't done Cobra, so I would love to do Cobra too. But yeah, so those are, so this was just huge when we were little. Yeah, it was everywhere, and it grossed a crap ton of money that year. So I just remember it being everywhere at the time. So much so I don't remember if I saw Rocky V in a theater. I might have. That might have been when I've seen it. I have a vague memory of that. And then having the guy being like the Don King kind of look alike, that dude. Yeah. And that kind of thing. I love this movie. And then, I'd seen it growing up, and then it's been, since life just goes by so quick, it's been probably 30 years since I've seen it, since high school probably.
Yeah, I mean, here's the interesting thing about the Rocky series is that, there's actually, as a series, there's actually a lot of kind of interesting things about it. But, the first movie is a very kind of intimate portrait, character-driven movie. Second one is, and then the third one starts to, it's like the bridge between the old Rocky and then what we get here, which is kind of like the action hero Rocky. By now Stallone is an action hero. And
we did Nighthawks too.
Oh, we did do Nighthawks. Man, we've done a lot of Stallone.
Yeah.
We got to catch Arnold up, because I don't think we've done that much Arnold yet.
Both Terminators, Commando, Predator,
Total Recall. I guess we did a lot of Arnold so far too.
Yeah.
But so this is, this is a weird movie in the
and Bruce Willis too. Die Hard 1 and 2, Color of Night, Fifth Element.
Color of Night. We've done some really interesting Bruce Willis movies.
And then I feel like, what did we do? Eastwood, we did Dirty Harry, we did The Beguiled, we did Iker Sanction.
I just rewatched. I figured, a little sidetrack. I figured that it was Christmas. Shane Black wrote it. I assumed that Last Boy Scout was a Christmas movie. So I watched it for Christmas. I hadn't seen Last Boy Scout in forever. So I just rewatched that recently. Tony Scott, nobody shot movies the way the made movies look like Tony Scott made in the 80s. It is absolutely gorgeous to look at. So gorgeous to look at that you are like, somebody should put some lights on. I mean, why is this office so dark? Why are they in the shadows? It's an office, for Christ's sake. Movie's not that great, but it was a fun rewatch.
I remember rewatching it probably when I post-college, maybe around the time we lived together, and enjoying it at the time.
Yeah, it's not, I mean, it's not, it's fun, but it's not a great movie.
It's no Glimmer Man.
Yeah.
No, but I remember liking it and watching it, and it's fun. I mean, and he has a very diverse career of the choices he did.
Yeah. Well,
did we do Death Becomes Her?
We haven't done that one, but we did talk about, in one of the Bruce Willis movies we did, maybe it was Fifth Element, we did give a lot of respect to Bruce for making interesting career choices in terms
that could have been Color of Night because of that, it being such a queer choice to pick for him at that time,
But Rocky IV, in the context of the Rocky series, is kind of a little bit of like a weird outlier, like they are all kind of, even the third one is still kind of more of a intimate kind of character piece. It's still urban. Fifth one kind of goes back that way. Rocky Balboa is definitely more closer to the first one in tone than maybe even 2. So 4 is like this weird anomaly right in the middle of the series. He had directed Staying Alive before this movie. And when you watch Staying Alive with John Travolta, which is a sequel to Saturday Night Fever, you can kind of see Stallone creating like the blueprint of what he was going to do with Rocky IV. I mean, obviously it's a very different story, but stylistically, rhythmically, the way he uses music in it, it's like he kind of invented this style for Staying Alive, and then it kind of crossed over into Rocky IV. And that's why Rocky IV is like bright and feels like there's, Rocky IV is literally 1/3 montage. Like there's like 26 minutes of montage in like a 92-minute movie. So
it's a pretty huge feat.
Eisenstein would be creaming his jeans with the inventor of the montage theory. And so like that's why we get that's why Rocky IV has such like a strange kind of feeling to it. But to Stallone's credit, somehow he makes it work. Stallone's biggest strength, I think, as a writer and a filmmaker is heart. Like he understands and it is really good at manipulating the emotional aspects of a story. He's been doing it since Rocky, and he does a lot of rewriting on a lot of the movies he's been in over the years, even with First Blood. He kind of makes Rambo way more sympathetic than Rambo is in the book. And so it's unfortunate that with Rocky IV, so many of the characters we've come to grow to love in the series kind of take a back seat to the story. Paulie's kind of reduced to comic relief with very little to do, very few lines. Adrian is kind of put in the back seat as well. Nobody should put Adrian in the corner, but Rocky did. What Stallone did for Rocky IV. He kind of fixes some of that with Adrian in the for the director's cut and in the novelization, which Stallone is credited as writing.
Which I'm interested to see. Did he really write? Did he shit a novelization out as well?
Yeah.
Or was it a ghostwriter?
I don't know. I'm pretty sure he did write the second one.
Yeah.
The second one, I haven't read it in a long time, but the second one is interesting because it's entirely from Rocky's point of view, is my recollection. So it's a really interesting exercise that I think he does. I don't know if he actually wrote the Rocky IV novelization or if he just gets credited because he did write the screenplay. But so it feels totally different than all the other movies. The score is totally different. Bill Conti had scored all the other Rocky movies. And 4 now has a very synth-heavy score, which is very typical of the time period. Even though he started putting in song, even though kind of all the movies had songs. And then, of course, as we were talking about earlier, Eye of the Tiger was kind of a big single from that soundtrack. He get it, like the Rocky IV soundtrack is in that mid to late 80s, going into the early 90s, where soundtracks were big business for like these compilation style song tracks. And Rocky's like one of the greats. I mean, I know we talked about that with Scream, The Craft. We talked about the soundtracks. And so those obviously came later. But, Rocky IV is kind of at the forefront of that, like hit after hit, recognizable song. I mean, they're not even like, I wouldn't even say they're radio hits, but because of this movie and because of the fan base of the Rocky movies, like No Easy Way Out, Hearts on Fire, these are all songs that Rocky fans have come to come to really love. And in the midst of all this kind of like montage and music video-ness and brightness, he knows how to manipulate the audience when it comes to emotion. Like I said, we're already kind of like predisposed to be emotionally connected to the characters in this movie. And so it doesn't, so he's not bogged down with exposition to get us to actually, fall in love with these characters so that we care about them. We already do going into it, which is one of the reasons why like he can have half hour of montage and only 1 hour of actual storytelling. I mean, the montages are telling stories as well, but in terms of like actual narrative storytelling, it's like an episode of a television show. If you take out that's the length of it.
Well, it certainly seems like that you hit the high point of the 80s montage or it sets the bar for the 80s montage with Rocky IV. And, in that era of MTV being hugely popular at the time in music videos and stuff, it really lends itself to being like this big kind of music video to the point where like, you're saying like the montage sequences of him like exercising and stuff was like, I knew girls growing up who like would listen to that stuff and while they worked out and all that, like, it's all very like, it's so cinematic and so endemic of that time frame. It's become like part of our culture, of our age group, that everyone knew. Even like you're saying, his score, even not even the pop songs in it. You knew that the music cues and cuts were from Rocky IV. That's how big of an impact it had.
Yeah, I mean, Vince DiCola's training montage and the track War. Those were on the soundtrack album as well. But they're fantastic. But the music and montage was an important part of the Rocky movies from the start. I mean, Bill Conti's score from Rocky is maybe my favorite score of all time. And that movie has, even the first one has at least 3 kind of montages. I mean, he's got there's a first training montage in the third one where he's not in shape yet. There's the Gonna Fly Now training montage where he is in shape. And then there's then the fight is a montage. So that's at least 3. So it's part of the language of the movies anyway. He just takes it to like excess. He brings it all the way, like balls to the wall. And in some ways it's risky. On paper, there's like, it seems like a third of a movie of just being montage shouldn't work, but somehow Stallone gets it to work. I think it's, in some ways, I think it's definitely a credit to him as a filmmaker and a storyteller.
I mean, it almost comes to a point where it's almost a cliche at this point, where, I don't know how a younger viewer will watch it and look at it and may think of it cheesy, but like, it's so gung-ho and it's such an economical way of telling the story, especially for the time period and stuff like that. Because for it being an hour and a half, I remember this movie being like much longer. So it's like while you're watching it, it's like, wow, there's not a lot. It's very economical with its pacing and story time and beats and structure. So it's fascinating to see that, when you break it down, that, like you said, a third of it is a montage, and it's like, oh wow, I didn't even realize, he's driving around after he talked to Adrian, he's got to go like, redeem himself for what happened to Apollo and stuff like that. And it's just, it's fascinating that you realize, oh yeah, a lot of this is a montage. It's like a lot of like the workout, like, because I only remember kind of the workout montage, which is like,
well, it opens with a montage, which recaps 3.
Yeah, which is good for people who forgot last year or whenever that was, a year and a half ago before it came out.
It's got a driving montage. It's got his No Easy Way Out driving montage.
Yeah.
He's got 2 training montages split by like a minute and a half of Adrian showing up.
Yeah.
So really that's like really one long montage with a break in the middle.
Yeah, well, but it's important for her to come back.
Yeah.
It kind of like solidifies everything.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of where to go with this. I mean, the Adrian character, obviously super important to the series. I mean, I would say that the original movie is, to me, the original movie is a love story with some boxing in it. Not as much a boxing movie with a love story in it. And she's often the voice of reason. Often,
she's like almost the heart too, right?
Yeah, she's certainly that. I mean, go ahead.
Where does it establish for the people like me who haven't seen the 2 or 3 in a while? So, 1, we know what happens in 1. 2, there's the rematch and he wins the rematch. And then, so is it by 3 that he becomes a financial success, or is that in 2?
No, that's 3. Because the second one is he gets his money and he blows it on like a car and jewelry for her and a jacket. And they do buy a house with the money. But he tries to do endorsement deals, but he can't really read very well. Plus, he's blind in one eye in the second movie. And he can't fight. And so he's really financially, they're having a tough time. And Adrian has to go back to work at the pet shop. And then that causes a problem because she's pregnant and she ends up getting hurt while working there. So the third one kind of starts with he now won the title. He's the heavyweight champion. And the opening montage of that movie is Rocky becoming a success. It's like him on the cover of magazines.
And then his exhibition fight with Thunder Lips.
Yeah, Thunder Lips, which I think is probably a charity gig. And
yeah,
but he's wearing the camel hair or whatever, coats, and he's driving around in sports cars, and they live in a big mansion by then.
So that establishes then by 4 where it's kind of like almost like a sense of complacency, but also kind of a sense of like, what he alludes to Apollo in this at the beginning. He's like, we've kind of made it.
Yeah.
And now we have to start thinking about what we want to do with the rest of our lives, where Apollo kind of, still feels like he, like the old warrior adage, where I don't know what else I'm going to do. This is what we do.
Yeah.
The two sides fighting each other. The Jan is kind of like two faces of like, he wants to keep going because this is all he knows how to do. And Rocky's kind of like trying to be more like realistic, and be like, well, at some point we're going to age out. We've already aged out. We need to just, relax. But then Apollo's like, well, all this stuff isn't, going to be around forever. All this excess, we need the money, we need the cash. What are we going to do? The old sheriff or the gunfighter in that town, once you're used up, they don't want you anymore.
Yeah. I mean, Apollo's definitely suffering from missing the spotlight on top of you dedicated your life to this thing. What are you going to do once you can't do it anymore? A lot of some of this stuff is much, I'm not going to say relevant because it's equally as relevant in this one, but it's more explained, I think, in the director's cut. So we get this story in a nutshell. There's this kind of amateur fighter from Russia, from the Soviet Union. He comes to America. He wants to fight Rocky because Rocky's the champ. And Apollo sees it on television, and Apollo wants to fight him. Drago wants to fight. They wanted to fight Rocky in an exhibition match, not for the title, but still because Rocky is the champ. They want to show the world that, a Russian fighter can beat an American fighter.
And we're in the midst of 85. We're in the midst of the Cold War, the USSR, the Union of the Soviet Socialist Republics versus America. So it's kind of like, the behind the Iron Curtain, literally, he comes out and he's a mystery and he comes over to America. And it's almost like him coming over being like, everyone's, who is this guy? What is this? We don't even know who he is. And then like, yeah, we want to fight the best you have here and, show I guess they're trying to offer an olive branch in a sense, and show like, we want to kind of have some sort of relations with the U.S. by doing this. And then they're like, we'll fight your best fighter, which is, they're saying is Rocky.
Yeah.
Because Rocky's everywhere and Rocky is the champion from beating Clubber Lang, Mr. T.
Yeah. You also have to take into account, what do you say? This is 85. Is that what you said this came out?
Yeah.
So, I mean, we're only 5 years away from 5 years after the miracle hockey game at the Olympics, where America beat the Russians in hockey, which was like a huge deal. Russia kind of being, or Soviet Union being kind of like being a communist state, like that was the kind of thing where they would, you were chosen and that was like your job. So they took like the talented athletes, and then that's what they did. They were athletes, and Russia was very good at training athletes, especially hockey players. So it's coming off of that still, the Russians often till that point had dominated the Olympics quite often. If, Brigitte Nielsen's character in Rocky IV is like like a gold medalist swimmer in the movie. That's a little piece of exposition. So like they're kind of recruited, to be representatives of the country in athletics. And in the novelization, you get a little bit of backstory in that, I think, if I recall correctly, because this has been another one that I haven't read in a really long time, but like Drago was like a coal miner.
Yeah.
That they saw, like the Russian government saw in some like film that was made about the coal mining industry. And they're like, who's that dude?
It's like them watching Earth. That what's his name? Is it Eisenstein? Sergei Eisenstein film?
Yeah.
So
he kind of gets like put into the hamster wheel of becoming a boxing champion for Russia. So he comes, and Apollo's he feels left out. He's feeling old. He wants to be relevant again. He wants to, there's the kind of like Cold War anti-Soviet Union sentiment that Dion was kind of talking about, where we were in the world at the time. So Apollo wants to fight him. And Apollo has kind of been the American representative throughout all the movies. His colors were always red, white, and blue. He always came out in Uncle Sam garb and stuff. So he wants to fight, and Rocky's saying, what else, what have you got to prove? Like, what else is there to prove? Adrian's part in this is kind of important because she's the only one who's willing to say, like, why? Like, Rocky says it, but Adrian's the one that's really like, she ends up kind of pulling it back because she doesn't feel it's her place to say this to Apollo. And she's like, I just care about you both so much. But Adrian also ends up being right, obviously, for the people that
talk to Apollo's wife.
People who have seen the movie. And so it's the reason why Rocky's going ahead and fighting Drago is kind of so significant in that relationship. So Apollo fights, and he ends up getting killed in the ring. For spoiler alert, after a fantastic musical number by James Brown.
Yeah, Living in America.
Did you get it? Did you stumble upon or happen to watch the kind of parody ESPN 30 and 30 Rocky IV episode?
No.
So there's this 5-minute thing that anybody who hasn't seen it and loves Rocky IV needs to check out online. So they do like this ESPN thing where they're looking back at the fight, the Drago Rocky fight, as if it's a real fight and that it really happened. And the whole premise is that that Balboa ends the Cold War.
I was going to say Rocky ends the Cold War by the end of this movie.
And they're recapping like how they got to that point, and there's interviews with journalists and boxing experts, and
they have real commentators there. Like I've met Warner Wolf; he's there. You have USA Network, which was a big network for us growing up there also. It's all set in this reality of like all these are, it's like, as if it is a real, contest in the world.
Yeah. So they set up and they're talking about the Apollo fight. And like, Apollo's going to scrimmage. And one guy's like, I've followed boxing and I've also followed dance my whole life. And one thing I can say is Apollo was in dancing shape. He wasn't in fighting shape. And then they show him like dancing and they're like, Apollo clearly winded from the big dance number he had before coming into the fight. Like he spent all his energy on coming into on the dance that he didn't have anything left for the fight.
Since we're at this second, I gotta give it to James Brown, his band. I think his band looks great. I love the guy flipping the trumpet around and stuff. And
yeah,
the Jerry curl. I mean, that Living in America. I mean, that became a chart topper as well at the time. Very patriotic. That stuff was all very in the public consciousness at the time as well.
Yeah, it's a great song. Great. I would say it's probably the song off the soundtrack that got the most play.
Yeah,
because it was James Brown.
Of course.
But so Apollo dies, it's tough because it's also like, obviously as audience members, we love the character, but it's kind of, you kind of feel like that's how Apollo wanted to go out. He wanted to go out swinging. He wanted
he's like a Viking. He wants the sword in his hand as he dies.
Yeah. Like in battle.
Yeah.
Even though, it's rough. And it ends up being like, that's like the inciting incident for the movie. That's the moment that kind of pushes us as an audience and the narrative into where the movie's going to go, which is like now Rocky needs to fight Drago seemingly for revenge. One thing that I will say about the director's cut, we can get more into it in detail later. I don't think the director's cut's entirely successful. But there are things about the director's cut that really work and that are really interesting. And one is that it becomes very clear that Rocky's motivation more than revenge is guilt.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is here, but he emphasizes it more in the director's cut.
See, I've always got the idea that it was guilt for him of not throwing the towel in sooner, that he got not conned, but talked into all this by Apollo and going along with it and all that. And that it was this, he was kind of dragged into it because he was Apollo's friend. He wanted to support him, but he knew it wasn't a good idea and he should have listened to Adrian.
Yeah.
And that caused this whole thing.
Well, I don't know if we should, I don't know how to.
I think what Stallone does brilliantly is he takes kind of an actual incident from the 30s, the Joe Louis Maximilian Schmeling, if I'm pronouncing his right, that boxing match that happened, which is, I think, what year is that? The Olympics are 36, I think it is. So I think it might be 35 or 37. I'm forgetting what year that is.
They fight twice, and for some reason I think the second fight is 38 stands out in my head.
Yeah, it's because, Hitler invades Poland in 39, declares war. So, and, that Joe Louis fight where he beats Maximilian Schmeling, that is kind of like a template here where it's like, it's almost like, as well as the running of what's his name, the athlete who beats in the running too, because he was African American in the Olympics.
Owens?
Yes, Jesse Owens.
I think so.
He beats in the Olympic running. He beats the Nazis at the time because they were in the Olympics. So that you almost have the real world set up back then in the 30s of the Nazis who were risen to power, in Germany, and then the West and the increasing antagonism going on at the time there, and us wanting to stay isolationist and not really be bothered with what was going on in Europe and all that, and then showing these exhibition things in the Olympics and then these boxing matches and stuff, and then Owens winning that match. And I've always heard, there was some, I forget who quoted it, but they were saying like when on the radio, when it happened and Owens won in Harlem, it sounded like it was New Year's, like, the celebration of New Year's, like, the ball dropping, like all of Harlem was screaming and yelling. They were so happy that, like, Owens beat this guy. So it seems like that kind of can be this template that Stallone takes and puts here, where you can take it in and put it into the USSR versus America and have this, catalyst of this guilt he has of what happened to Apollo. And that gives him the proper motivation and then want to go over there, or not want to go over there, but that they move the next fight over to Moscow or wherever it is in the USSR, in Russia.
I mean, basically, Stallone, the first movie was inspired by a fight, the Ali Chuck Wepner fight, where this guy this like kind of schlub went the distance with the champ. So it's kind of not out of the ordinary for him to kind of draw inspiration. Though Schmeling, I don't think was ever like a card-carrying Nazi. The Nazis definitely used him as propaganda, pushing their like superior Aryan race kind of stuff. And I believe that Schmeling beat Joe Louis they're in their first fight. And so they were really like, look, you had your America's best fight was black, our Aryan fighter came in and, a black fighter can't beat our fighter. But then Lewis ends up beating him in the rematch.
And they become friends later in life. They became good friends. And I think you're right, because me watching it this time, it's like, I kind of feel like an empathy for Drago. In it, where he's being used the exact same way, because you kind of get that at the end, where he kind of realizes once his emotion, because he's kind of like a Terminator for the whole movie, he's emotionless, he's he's like a robot, he's whatever, and they do that on purpose. But then by the end of it, once Rocky starts breaking through with the hits and making him bleed and cutting him and all that, no pain and all that kind of stuff, and he starts getting kind of flustered. You see that kind of come out, and I think he almost realizes in there, he's like, when he says that, I'm fighting for me, not for everyone, which is very, you kind of get this depth in the performance or in the character that you wouldn't think could be there,
Yeah. And again, that's an aspect of the director's cut that gets played up more. I mean, I guess I keep bringing up the director's cut. Maybe we should just talk about it and kind of get it out of the way, and then get back to kind of the more overall narrative stuff. The director's cut, Stallone decided to go back into the editing room, and during COVID, everybody was kind of locked down. He decided that he was going to go back in and kind of make Rocky IV the way he wishes he had done it back in the 80s.
It's so surreal for me, because I wasn't locked down. I had to work.
Yeah.
So I was like the only one out in this ghost town working, but it's a different story.
Yeah. So, everybody thought like 5 would be a better choice for that. And I was thinking about it this time. There's a cut that you can find online of like an old work print that's all beat to crap, and it's 8 millionth generation VHS
of Rocky IV.
Of Rocky V.
5.
That is more what they kind of thought Rocky V would be. Closer to the feeling of the previous movies, and how that changed. If we ever do Rocky V, we'll dive into that. But thinking about it this time, because it's always like, why didn't he do like Rocky IV is good? Why didn't he do Rocky V? Rocky V has a son who died, and I can imagine maybe that's like he's maybe hesitant to open up that kind of like can of worms, like emotionally trying to recut a movie that is dead sons in. So I didn't think about that for the longest time until this time when I was like, we should do Rocky V. I was like, well, Rocky V might be kind of hard for him to do as a dad who lost the son who co-stars with him in that movie. But he decides to do Rocky IV. The big thing that was like when he said he was going to do it, and it was on social media and he was on Instagram, and he said he was cutting out the robot. So that was like the big headline. Rocky cuts out the robot. The robot is was created by a company called International Robotics Incorporated in New York City. And it was when it was, I don't know if it was the purpose of it being built, but they started using it to help autistic children probably communicate, learn how to communicate, learn and stuff. And Stallone had a autistic son named Sergio. And I guess he was so amazed by the robot and so thankful for what the robot was doing with his son, who was autistic, that he kind of, I don't know, as promotion, decided to put the robot in Rocky IV. And the robot's original voice is voiced by the CEO of the company that built it, Robert Dornick.
And it gets a SAG card, doesn't it?
Allegedly, the robot was a member of SAG and toured with James Brown.
Yeah, on that tour after 85, when he was doing the Living in America tour or whatever the tour he did.
It is no doubt a strange thing to put.
Yeah, but not for us who lived in the time.
Yeah, I mean, it's very typical of that era.
It's like you watching the old Battlestar Galactica. Maybe that might be strange. What are they called? The Centurions or the robots then?
Yeah.
But it's of the era, so that's why I don't think it's out of place. And I understand he just thinks it dates the movie very much. Yeah. But, I think it's like the stuff I really liked about the movie is like I love the interactions with Paulie. Like everything Paulie says, I was genuinely laughing at. It was funny. It wasn't cheesy to me. And Paulie didn't have anything to do anymore because they're all living this extravagant life. And Paulie's like, well, what am I going to do? He's got the money he needs from either Rocky or what he's making and stuff. So Paulie has the robot now, and it's this little funny arc where he turns it into a woman's voice, and he's like, I'm going to cut it. I'm going to get its wires, whatever he says, like tubes cut or something, tubes tied. I'm going to get its wires tied, and I enjoyed all that.
Yeah. Also, I think in the mid 80s, robots in American pop culture were like the ultimate sign of decadence.
Yeah.
Like it was like the rich people had robots that would serve them drinks and stuff.
Yeah. Two of the most iconic Mr. Rogers episodes I've ever seen when I was little that I remember is him going to to visit Lou Ferrigno on the Incredible Hulk set because, explaining to kids that he's not really a monster. He wears makeup and stuff. And the other one is him going to this factory that have these R2-D2 type robots that they can put different kind of like placards in, so like maybe it looks like it's wearing remember the old posters you put on a marquee that shows light through? It's something like that where they put it on the body and it'd look like a tuxedo, and this thing could serve, it was like a little waiter, it would serve stuff like that. And he goes to the factory and see how those things are made. They just look a little like trash cans.
Yeah.
So like at that time, yeah, robots were like in, and even like remember the first generation Nintendo came with a robot and all, like robots were everywhere. So I completely understand why it's in. I never questioned it. And then I don't know. And then the other guy says the CEO speculates he didn't want to pay him again the royalties, which I don't know if that's true or not. For this new cut. But the stuff
I do get the sense that Stallone just wanted to do it, wanted to make a new cut, and MGM was probably like, you can do it as long as it doesn't cost us anything.
But because it's weird because the movie is so slim, the new cut's only 2 minutes longer. He could have made the movie, and it has, 28 minutes or something of extra footage. So he could have had it be a 2-hour movie, a longer cut, and no one would have been bothered. It's not like he's taking a 2-hour movie and making it into like a Godfather, 3 hours and 15 minutes, So he does take a lot out, but the stuff he adds into the director's cut, like I love the boxing commission scene, because that explains the exposition of them. Like, we're not sanctioning the fight. You can't do this. This is going to be out of bounds of him going to Russia after Apollo's killed. I like the Tony Burton scene, the eulogy he gives.
When I watched that scene, the eulogy at the funeral, but the scene. I'll let you talk about the eulogy because I was talking about the scene at the cabin between him.
Yeah, and Rocky. I like the eulogy scene where he speaks before Rocky speaks over Apollo's coffin before they lay him down, and then it's another take, I guess, of Rocky breaking, which I really like too, where Rocky kind of like starts crying a little bit and stuff like that. And it's a little quicker as opposed to the speech from the theatrical cut. Yeah. And then he stays a little more stoic and then puts the belt down. And then,
well, Rocky's speech is also longer because he, in the recut, in the director's cut, Rocky talks about how like everything I got, everything my family's got is because of you. Like you gave me a chance. And so,
and he kind of like, his voice cracks and he kind of breaks there, and it's really sad. It's like tragic. He's right, and it's like you know, it's all because of you. And then that Tony Burton scene you're saying at the cabin too.
Yeah, which there is a version of that in the movie, but I got really choked up watching the scene, the Tony Burton scene of the director's cut. The director's cut has a lot of really great stuff. Its biggest difference is like the most it's added is just different takes of things. He uses a lot of different takes. So it's a lot of the stuff that we know from Rocky IV, the theatrical cut, he just uses different either angles or different just like performances of the same lines.
Or he extends scenes where like when Adrian walks out of the room, he follows her into the kitchen and they have like another like 2-minute sequence of like, you know, when they were talking about Apollo and he kind of like wins her over, you know, gets her to go along with it seemingly like, don't worry, it'll be all right kind of a thing. The biggest thing I found fascinating watching Stallone, you know, in the editing suite, you know, like when he's talking to his editor director is his idea, which kind of, you know, everything is your foresight is like, he's like, I would never have killed Apollo now. He's like, that was the stupidest thing I ever did. And he's like, and you're like, yeah, you're right. He's like, because you know, Apollo, he said if he, you know, put him in a wheelchair, he could have kind of became the Mickey character. And then he's like, but then he's like, there wouldn't have been a Rocky V. There probably wouldn't have been a Rocky Balboa. Maybe he could have did him in a certain way. But I kind of agree. I don't know. I guess, no, maybe I'm on the fence about that. Because it's so tragic because we know the real world of Apollo dying. But then the alternate, if he didn't do that and he somehow got, you know, I don't know, they didn't shoot it that way, but if they had another version where, you know, he's paralyzed and then he comes with him to Russia to help him and he's, I don't know, maybe he's like Stephen Hawking at that point or something. You know what I mean? Yeah, I don't think it'll work if he's just in a wheelchair running around like yelling and screaming.
I don't know. I don't know if he would have been, maybe for the next movie he would have been more relevant. I mean, I think he would have been hospitalized for probably the rest of 4. Yeah, there's
maybe he shows up with Adrian.
There's an extra scene with Apollo right at the top of the movie, kind of like when he shows up at Rocky's house. The thing
go out on the lawn.
The thing I do like about the robot scene in the theatrical cut is when he's washing the car and his son is like riding the robot and they're listening to music. Yeah. And the son's like, you know, when am I going to learn how to fight or whatever? And Rocky's like, well, you know, I fight so that you don't have to fight. And, you know, you don't want to have your face look like a punching bag like me. And he goes, Dad, your face doesn't look like a punching bag. And Rocky's reaction is like so genuine Rocky. He's like, oh, really? Thank you. And he's like, it looks like a catcher's mitt. You're like, you little asshole.
You little fuck. He's like, you can take the phone call here. And he's like, what are you doing? I was like, I'm going in circles or something because he's following the robot.
Yeah.
And he cuts Brigitte Nielsen out a bit, which I guess
he cuts her way down. Yeah, not completely out of it. The Apollo fight, Apollo puts up a little more of a fight. He throws more punches. And the biggest thing in that fight is that we get reaction shots even before the fight from the James Brown thing through the fight. We get way more reaction shots of Apollo Creed's wife, Marianne. So we see her witnessing this more often. We lose the little exchange between Brigitte Nielsen's character and her, which is strange.
But I like that though, because it's like she knows what's going to happen.
Yeah.
You know, which you don't get when he goes to Russia. She doesn't say anything to Adrian. They just make eye contact. But it's like we already know it's a foregone conclusion. So I kind of like that. She's like, I hope we can still be friends after this.
Yeah.
So it's almost like, you know what, go fuck your mother. Excuse my French. You know, it's like, wow. It's like
maybe he takes that out because there is an alternate take. You know this shot during the Apollo fight where the great Michael Pataki, is smoking and he puts his hand out and she takes a drag off his cigarette.
Yeah, of course.
In the take that he uses of that shot in the director's cut, she has a look of worry on her face.
Oh.
She's not quite as certain. So maybe he felt that it would be too much of a contradiction to keep both.
Does she take the drag in the director's cut, or is that out?
I think she does, yeah.
Because I think that's such a telling. There's so much subtext in that she's so comfortable with him that she's taking a drag from his cigarette. Like, that's what you do intimately with, So it's like, wow, there's so much in that little moment,
Yeah, you do that with like your best friend, like Dion.
Or your lover. You know what I mean? Yeah. I guess.
Well, I think it's.
When I used to go smoke in the movie theaters, we go movies, I never was like, have some of this wet cigarette.
Oh, that wasn't you? Whose cigarette
gosh.
was I dragging off of? I think he might have done that, even though I like that exchange, and it is like the scene. The piece of dialogue between the two wives. I guess in hindsight, now that I'm thinking it out, he is trying. One of the things that director's cut really does, and I think it does it pretty successfully, is give you more empathy for Drago. When Drago comes up out of the floor in the Creed fight, Stallone definitely does play up like the audience's hatred of Drago.
Yeah.
There's a lot more booing. It's louder. There's more shots of the crowd, like really like, being, and you presume it's not just that he's fighting Apollo Creed. It's because he's Russian,
Yeah. And that, that's in the year of 2026. It comes across, it's hard to try to justify that, because really watching it this time, it's like, well, Apollo's kind of pompous. He's kind of an asshole, but back then you're like with Apollo.
Yeah.
You're like, yeah, you know what, Apollo? Yeah, you're right. He's going to kick this Russian's ass, this Soviet's ass or whatever. Like, that was the hostility at the time, because we had this, almost 30-year Cold War going. But now, since the USSR disbanded in 91 and the Berlin Wall came down in 89, it's like years past. You dull those senses, you get a lot more of. You kind of feel more of the antagonizingness of that whole sequence and all the crowd booing him and all that, and then you feel like the alienation of him when he's coming up into the ring. He's like almost like he's an alien in an alien world. He's like, this is just so weird.
And his reactions are more relevant, like more telling in the director's cut. Like, he uses takes that I think emphasize that. Like, I think Drago in that instance in the director's cut is a little more taken aback by the reaction of the crowd. Like, it affects him more than it does in the theatrical cut. And I think maybe in a sense too, there's Rocky IV gets a lot of shit for the propaganda aspect of it. But I think in what you're saying about like with time, we don't really remember what it was like then. And I think that new scene with Apollo at Rocky's house is kind of like more like Creed is more like, we got to show this Russian that he can't come to here. Like I think Stallone is attempting to remind us of what the sentiment was then in that scene, making Apollo's motivation, or at least Apollo is saying is his motivation, be even more like, we got to show him that America's the best, that they can't come here and do this. And
Because that's certainly the sentiment, and you get that a lot with people who go back and like watch, say, World War II era movies and stuff. They're like, "Oh, it's pure propaganda." It's like, well, at the time, how do you get a nation to back something? This is what you have to do, and this is why these things, and they may age poorly, like we and like say with this, but that was at the time the sentiment was we're at each other's throats, we're I mean, look at like Red Dawn. We had all these movies that were like very, Dr. Strangelove. Anything at any time could lead to some sort of nuclear engagement. You know what I mean? So it was this very tense time. So there was, I guess, for people who are younger who weren't around in that era, that was the framing of it. The bad guys were always up until like Die Hard, where they're just like very
miscellaneous European.
Yeah, Eastern Europeans who end up not being terrorists; they're just robbers. Yeah. Under a guise of being Eastern Europeans. The Russians were always it's either the communists or the red Chinese. It's like that was what it was, because those were. I mean, it's even like G.I. Joe, Cobra is a ruthless terrorist organization determined to rule the world. Like that was what it was, because that's who we were fighting. We didn't really have, and you also had like that sentiment, like not to go down a rabbit hole, but you have that sentiment in the 80s too of how a lot of the Vietnam veterans are feeling about how, you're drafted, you're forced to go to war, or you're patriotic, you go to war, and it wasn't the right war, but you come back, you get spit on, and you're called baby killer and all this other shit. So you have in the 80s a lot of those, like especially in First Blood, that the monologue at the end where it's like finally someone's kind of speaking for the veterans, and then you see like through the 80s like going back and getting the people we left at the POWs and all that kind of a thing. So there was a big sentiment of being, the 80s was it was a patriotic, the America was booming, you had a big growth period. So there was lavishness of the 80s, and you had still in the back of our heads that there was this other, which was the enemy across the pond. And it was this, it was like an arms race. What society's going to win? Is it going to be communism, socialism, or is it going to be capitalism in the America way?
Yeah. I mean, even Rambo in the second two movies, and Rambo 2 and Rambo 3, even though he doesn't go to Russia, he's fighting Russians in those movies.
Rambo 3 were with the Afghans, because people, in the which is another rabbit hole we can get into. We kind of financed that war to bog down the Russians in Afghanistan in the 80s, because the Russians went in and fought in Afghanistan for like a decade or more, and we were supplying the Afghans. So that's who Rocky's teaming up. Not Rocky. That's Rambo's teaming up with Rambo 3. He's hanging out with all the Afghan. He's hanging out with Osama bin Laden and all the people in Afghanistan. Kicking around the old lamb bladder or whatever they're playing with.
Yeah, whatever that crazy game.
Whatever that crazy game they're playing. So yeah, it's like how tides turn. So like he's fighting Russians, and then is it Russians too that are kind of that show up there in Rambo 2 that have
I think the Russians are the ones that have the POWs.
Yes, somehow it's like that's the big reveal. Yeah, because they have that big chopper. We have ways of making you talk. It's like it's all that kind of thing. So I mean again, we're not trying to justify anything here, but it's like we're just trying to unpack the time and the area of the time capsule of that time, where this is stuff anybody, no matter what age you were, just, this is like, this is how it was. So it's just weird, and watching it now so far removed from that era, like, you have a little more empathy for Drago. You understand kind of the hostility at the beginning, of how the Soviets are feeling. But at the same time, it comes across in that second press conference. I think they're kind of like, America's a piece of shit. We don't kill it.
Yeah.
You got to make him at some point to heal. I mean, even in wrestling, you had, Nikolai Volkov. It's like, we had, people would boo. So it's to me, it's very heavy-handed that they're just outright booing Drago at the Apollo exhibition fight in Vegas.
It's even more so in the director's cut. Like he really plays it up.
Yeah, and then conversely at the end, then they're all booing, Rocky.
Yeah,
I want to say Rambo,
and he plays that up too. Like the audience's hostility towards Rocky in the end fight is vamped up as well.
But it's nice because then you get that, you have the transition of them coming, to his side, and either naturally or through the process of just editing, and they get there, and then by the time it's like, and then he makes that little speech where it's like the people have to change first before then, like, Mikhail Gorbachev or the government has, it's always the people that have to rise up to have a change in government.
Yeah, and it's also like a callback to Apollo, because Apollo's like, you can't, like, we are who we are, we can't change. Like, people don't change. Like, I'm a fighter, that's what I like. I can't change. And then Rocky's big speech at the end is like, hey, if I can change and you can change and he can change and that person can change.
He's my friend, Gail. Right or wrong, I can't change that.
We get more Adrian in the director's cut.
Which is good. Like that, they extend that sequence on the stairs, don't they?
Yeah, and we get like you said, there's kind of there's a second scene where she leaves when she goes to get coffee when they're sitting at the dining room table
discussing it. Yeah.
We also see Adrian. There's a little moment between Rocky and Adrian before he gets in like the limo to go to the airport to go to Russia, and she asks him again not to go. And then he gets a little call back. He's like, remember one time, a long time ago, I told you, I asked you, like, I don't make you, I never asked you not to be a woman. I don't make me not be a man.
He's throwing that card.
But then again, we also lose the kind of anniversary cake in bed. I think we lose that in the director's cut. So we gain a little Adrian, we lose a little Adrian.
Which, I mean, I understand that. I mean, that doesn't really serve the plot here or there, except that they have a happy marriage and he's being very romantic.
Yeah.
The guy says no matter what, it's not going to come off your hand. It's going to stay on. It's like, I mean,
it might look like a snake, but it's not going to bite you.
Yeah.
Adrian's part kind of cut down from previous Rocky movies, but still like very important. I think that scene on the stairs is extremely important. I mean, you haven't seen Rocky 3 in a long time, but they have when Rocky can't train, he can't beat Apollo on the beach and he's kind of given up. There's an exchange between Adrian and Rocky on the beach, which is right before a commercial break would come if you were watching it on television. Back then. As soon as that scene ends, you can go get your popcorn.
I remember you used to watch that in Spanish.
Use the restroom.
It'd be on the Spanish channel. I'd walk in and then Blake be watching it in college in Spanish. He's like, because I know all the lines anyway.
Yeah, I know verbatim anyway, so what's the difference? But that scene is like, he's like, I'm afraid, okay? I'm afraid. Is that what you want? And she's like, what are you afraid of? Like, I'm afraid of losing everything. He's like, well, what are you going to lose? You're going to lose. He says, this isn't everything. Like the cars, the house, all this. Like that's, like that's not everything. But you got to do. So the significance of the stair scene is that it's the opposite. She's afraid. She doesn't want, and she says, you're gonna, I don't want to lose what we got. He said, well, this ain't everything, like it's a kind of role reversal on the stair scene. And it's one of the things I really love about that scene.
Now, not to take a left turn, but just quickly to put a pin in that. But what Rocky 5, what happens? He loses her, she dies, or there's
Rocky 5, Paulie loses all their money and they have to move back to South Philadelphia.
Okay, so they're living back and then she's dead by Rocky Balboa. He's got a picture on the wall in that little restaurant he has.
Yeah, she dies. She dies in between Rocky 5 and Rocky Balboa from lady cancer.
And that's why he's kind of given up on the world, and he's
got his restaurant. And he's living his life.
And I never saw Creed 2. I saw Creed.
Yeah.
But I watched the scenes. I watched a couple scenes from Creed 2 with him and Dolph.
Yeah.
It's pretty badass. Where he's like, a nice picture. Apollo's like, oh. I mean, he seems genuine, but it's a sad tale where he's like, you fucked my life up.
Yeah. He's like,
after the fight.
No pictures of me up here? And he's like, no, there's no pictures of that. Or like he doesn't say no pictures of you. He says, there's no pictures of like that or something.
Which is
like
another
that.
kind of slap in the face, I think. Because it's like, why not? You should be proud of that. It's like, you destroyed, you brought down you used to destroy comedies. Reagan went there because of you.
I don't want to go down a Creed 2 rabbit hole, and I like the Drago aspect of Creed 2, and I love that we get kind of some more sympathy for Drago, but Creed 2 is, if you ask ChatGPT, like, write me a Rocky movie, like, write me a 6th Rocky movie, or like another Rocky movie. It's like, it really does feel like they're just trying to, you load all of the Rocky movies into like a computer, and the algorithm figures out like what are the main things of every Rocky movie, and then spits out a script that's like, yeah, this is a logical choice for a new Rocky movie, and we'll bring back Drago.
I enjoyed Creed when I watched it.
Yeah, I like Creed a lot.
I was crying before, like, I knew he was going to have a heart attack because I knew it was coming in that scene in the thing, which is the movie where it's like, the kids, Apollo's son's running. I forget the actor's name, and they start following him on the ATVs. And
that's
shit.
The first one.
Oh, that is okay. I thought that was the second one. I was like, oh Jesus. Well, okay, that's the first one. Okay, I thought it was a clip I saw from the second one.
No, that's definitely from the first one. I like for the first Creed 2. I will say
as well.
I think the unfortunate thing about Rocky 4 is I think people of a younger generation who didn't grow up with the Rocky movies, who don't know the Rocky movies, didn't maybe see them in order. I think Rocky 4 is maybe, I can see why I imagine a younger audience of young adults today look at Rocky 4 and think that the Rocky movies are like is a cheesy franchise, and why they think Creed is so great. Because Creed kind of takes it back to what it originally was. And they don't know that. Like, they don't know that, like, the first 2 Rocky movies are what they were trying to do with Creed. Like, they're trying to take the series back to what it originally was, which was like a more intimate character study of someone trying to persevere or fight their own demons while trying to, achieve something. Rocky 4, I can understand being very cheesy to somebody who hasn't discovered it in line with the series as a whole.
Or the historical context of the era.
That too, like not just the historical context, but like the pop cultural context as well of it too.
I could see like the overt patriotism people being turned off by, like, this is stupid and this is terrible, and it's like, well, again, it's the era.
And it's like the music and the montages and the feel, like it's a wonderful time capsule of 1985.
It's an 80s. It gets to the point where they did that, what's the guys from South Park that did that Team USA, they're like, montage, it got to it became its own thing. Where it's definitely. Like this solidified the montage, it's like even like you watch any A-Teams episode, there's a montage of them building something that they don't need, halfway through or whatever. Montages were great back then. I don't know why it took 100 years for people to realize from, like you said, Sergei to like, let's use a montage.
Yeah. We're jumping around in the history of this movie. One thing we should have mentioned, we're a little out of practice of what, our flow of doing the show. One thing that we normally
didn't really have a rundown either. So
we probably would have done earlier is
the backstories and stuff.
Well, just that, like, I think it's an interesting thing that conceptually Stallone, in writing the movie, originally wanted kind of the roles were reversed in that, like, the Russian was going to be kind of like the Neanderthal, big brute, trained kind of, didn't have, he was like the old, like the fighter of the warrior of the past, and Rocky was going to be the warrior of the future and then it took the casting of Dolph Lundgren for Stallone to say, like, oh, well, we can't do that now because Dolph is like the perfect human specimen. Like, he's not Dolph is not that. Dolph is perfection. He's like, you built him in a lab. That's what you would get. So he ends up kind of reversing what his original concept was and made Drago kind of the fighter of the future, and took Rocky to go. He took Rocky back in Rocky 3, but he took Rocky way back in Rocky 4.
Well, even to the point where it's like didn't he say in interviews at the time he only really envisioned it as a trilogy. It's kind of like Eastwood with the Dirty Harrys. Like after I think The Enforcer, he was like, I don't really see where Harry Callahan can go, but they offered him so much money and gave him like a proto slasher movie script for Sudden Impact, which is the Make My Day movie from '83. He's like, okay, I'll do another. So it's like the height. Like Rocky 3 did so well.
Yeah.
Stallone's like, screw it, we can do a fourth one. Let me just come up with a concept. And again, it's like another kind of like just salutations, or not salutations. It's like just like a lauding Stallone for having all, being, the writing it all and coming up with stuff, doing the fucking novelization and all this. It's like that Cameron level stuff when you hear in the old days when someone would walk into a room, they would say like James Cameron had 3 workstations. He's cutting Terminator over here on a desk. To the right, he's prepping for Aliens. And over here, he's got another phone book. And they're like, what's that? They're like, oh, that's a spec script for Rambo 2. And it's like, how are you doing 3 different things at once? Like that's what kind of Stallone's doing here with like, because isn't Cobra 85 as well, I would say?
It's got to be right around there. I mean, it's
Or
definitely
84?
pre-Rocky 4 because you could just tell. I think that's where he and Brigitte probably meet or work for. They certainly worked together the first time on Cobra.
Yeah, and then he's also got Rambo 2 out that year, and then and then one Saturday Night Fever or
Staying Alive.
Staying Alive. What year? That's like 83 maybe.
Yeah.
And what's the movie with when he's the country singer? Urban Cowboy?
Rhinestone.
Rhinestone. What year is that? It's like he's doing a lot of stuff at the time. It's like he's not really taking like a year or two off. He's just he's going.
It's also that's a good point in that, like, I never really thought about that. Certainly Rocky 4 is not the fourth installment of a movie series, but it was not typical.
It beat out because Sudden Impact hit such a bar in the 80s of Make My Day. It became this iconic thing where that was the biggest grossing fourth installment of a movie up until Rocky 4. And then Rocky 4 blew it out, which was 2 years later.
It's just like it didn't happen very often. I mean, the movie franchise, there's sometimes on Turner Classic, you'll see like they just had some kind of a British old woman kind of detective. It seems like you would know. It seems like the concept of it is like Murder, She Wrote. It's like
Miss Marple?
Yeah. They just had like a bunch of her movies on Turner Classic recently. And then a couple of months ago, they had like all like these Man from U.N.C.L.E. movies. So clearly there was.
Oh, yeah. There's like the Thin Man movies.
Yeah. There was movie series that went.
Yeah.
But they were a long time ago comparatively to like the 80s.
Aside from like the Bonds.
Yeah. The Bond is like the exception.
And then you had a kind of like a couple Shaft movies and stuff. I mean, they were doing sequels to movies.
Yeah.
And stuff. And Jaws.
But even Shaft, I think, only has 3. You had Shaft.
Yeah. Shaft Goes to Africa, and there's a couple. But they started, I think it really started gearing up after Jaws and then Star Wars, of course, in the indie movies. Like by the time you hit the 80s, they're like, we can, sequels are plausible. We can do a couple.
Yeah, but by 85, you probably still only had 3 Nightmare on Elm Street. Well, not even 3 Nightmare on Elm Streets yet. You only had 1 by then, but you had probably had 3 Friday the 13th. You only had 2 Halloween. So even horror wasn't jumping into.
Well, you're at number 6 in 86. Jason Lives, I think, is 86.
Oh, well, yeah.
Maybe. That means they're making 1 a year almost for those, because I think 7 is 87, and then Jason Takes New York, I think, is 88.
My point is, it wasn't as big of a thing.
It lent itself certainly more to horror in that genre.
Yeah.
With the Halloweens and stuff and all that.
So for him to do a 4th Rocky was probably like, oh, okay. I mean, obviously Rocky 3 was huge for the year it came out. It was like I'm going to throw out a statistic that's probably not correct, so don't. But it was like the second highest grossing movie after like E.T. or some shit that year.
Yeah, it was on. It was like 6 weeks. It was number one, and between that movie, between Rocky IV and Rambo 2, he made like $600 million in ticket sales that year. I think in 85 money.
Yeah.
You know, and that might be worldwide, but still, that's like, I don't know what that is for today's, you know, he reset it for today, but, you know, he was riding high.
Let's see. Movie, like trying to think of narrative stuff.
Well, I mean, you know, you think like Dolph's relatively new. You know, he's got that fascinating past where he was like a genius. He did a week at MIT. He had he had physics degrees. He got a scholarship. He was on the martial arts circuit. He was, I think for Sweden, he was like on the teams. He was on a lot of, I'm kind of just paraphrasing here, but he was really good in the martial arts world, doing karate and stuff like that. And then he ends up, I think he realizes he wants to do movie. I think at that point he wants to do movies. He drops out and he goes to Australia and he starts bouncing in Australia, meets Grace Jones, and then he goes to New York, becomes Grace Jones's bodyguard, then boyfriend.
Yeah.
And then he meets Andy Warhol, and then Grace Jones gets him into the last Roger Moore movie, A View to a Kill, the last Roger Moore Bond movie. And that's his first role, and he doesn't have a speaking part. He's just like a bodyguard in a scene. And then this is his second movie where it's like, you know, this kind of makes him a sensation. You know, we get Red Scorpion after that. We get a whole slew of movies. So, you know, he comes on the scene, and watching him tonight, he really has, to me, that Terminator presence. And then I read somewhere that Arnold trained him. I don't know if that's true or not, but it's like he has that kind of Arnold T-800 kind of, you know, robotic kind of movements and looks and how he walked. Not until the end when his emotions start coming out.
Yeah.
Like they've kind of taken everything out of him and made him the machine with all the technology. Because I always love that dichotomy of like, you know, he's all tech. He's in these rooms. He's in these crazy places, all hooked up to all these machines to watch everything. While Rocky's out running in the snow and using very, you know, the old school approach.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly. I don't think it's so far of a stretch to say that character and the appearance of that character and the way that character acts was probably very likely influenced by Arnold. I mean, by that point, they make no secret about it now that there was definitely a professional rivalry between Arnold and Sly, even though they're friends now. At the time, they really kind of hated each other because of that rivalry. What's interesting about, like, when you watch the special features, and I'm going back like 20 years of the DVD for Universal Soldier, they really talk about like they talk about that movie about like it's so early in Dolph's career, like he was a kickboxing champion, and then we cast him in this movie. But it's like, no, like a lot of stuff, like he had a lot of movies between those. Before Universal Soldier, like, did they make you? When you watch it, you feel like, did they make Universal Soldier like right after Rocky IV? And they just didn't put it out for like another 10 years or something.
No, he did Red Scorpion.
Yeah, like I'm saying,
which is like 87 or 88. He did
I Come
Punisher's
in Peace.
89. I Come in Peace. And then, you know, I knew who he was by the time Universal Soldier comes out because they're kind of promoting Van Damme as the vehicle for that movie. So, you know, and of course, Masters of the Universe, which is like 87. I want to say
Punisher 89.
Yeah, so he's got a bunch of movies under his belt at that point.
Yeah. Going back to the director's cut for a second in the context of the story, I talked about how, you know, he tries to kind of humanize Drago a little more, the director's cut, with the audience in the Creed fight. Kind of the same goes for the final fight, is like the audience is really hostile towards Rocky, and Drago has this big entrance, and then there's the big banner comes down, and all the
Stalin theme, like the national anthem they do, and the kind of
Yeah, and like all like the representatives of the government are there.
Yeah, and the Mikhail Gorbachev lookalike who comes, who reprises the role of Naked Gun, he's there. You know, it's like it's supposed to be like the president's coming to watch.
And I think it must be
the premiere.
How the shots he uses, the takes he decides to use in the director's cut.
Because he doesn't have him clap either, right? Gorbachev, he has Gorbachev just get up and leave, right?
Yeah, they just get up and walk out. They're kind of like disgusted.
In the theatrical version, he even wins Gorbachev over, which is kind of like lays the foundation to what, I mean, we can talk about history in a little bit, what actually happens between him and Reagan, that they basically end the Cold War together.
Yeah.
You know, which is huge for Reagan to be able to, you know, kind of, what do you call that? Kind of like break Gorbachev and make Gorbachev understand like what we're both doing. It's like Khrushchev and Kennedy. It's like, you know, we can't let this happen because this is only going to end bad. But in the director's cut, usually, they just have him like in disgust, get up and leave, and you know that other guy, the great what's his face, he ain't gonna bode well.
Yeah, but the way he presents the beginning of the fight and the takes that he chooses to tell that part of the story in the director's cut, when Drago says to Rocky, "I must break you," it's not played as much of like Terminator, I'm a machine threatening. It's like, I have to do this. Like, I have to beat you because like, look at all this shit behind me. Like everything's at stake for me.
That's interesting, man. That's interesting. I didn't think, because I've always misremembered the line like "I will break you now," which is not the line, but I've always thought that's what I've always quoted. But then when he says "I will break you," you know, so it's like, yeah, he comes more off like he's so confident that, you know, of course he's gonna fight him, he's gonna beat him.
Yeah.
But then, you know, when he starts breaking through and he's like, you know, he's like iron, you know, it's kind of like, you know, it jumps a bit, but it's like, oh, you know, he's realizing that no matter what, even though his pounds per second punches are hitting like 2,000 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
You know, he's just, you know, and then, you know, they say technically if you were to score the match, you know, Drago may win for punches landed, but it's more about that Rocky was able to survive the match, not go down, and make him kind of fall. You know, have the giant, you know, it's the old David and Goliath kind of adage.
Yeah, well, when he did Rocky 3, he trimmed way down. Like his body fat percentage was like negative.
It was like dangerous, right?
Yeah, because he wanted to make Mr. T look so much bigger than he was. He didn't have that problem with Dolph Lundgren. So, I mean, Stallone he's a brick shit house in this movie. Like, he is the most jacked he's probably ever been in a movie is in this movie because, I mean, Dolph Lundgren is like a foot taller than him to begin with. So he could really bulk up and be big and still be dwarfed by the size.
Stallone's only 5'9".
Yeah, 5'9" or 5'10", something like that.
Yeah, because when I met him, I was like, wow. It's like Schwarzenegger, the same thing. When I met him, it's like, these aren't tall people. Although I've met them, and this is 20 years ago now, but it's like when I met them, it's like, you know, as you get older, you do get a little shorter.
Yeah.
But, you know, you look at them, you're thinking they're Dolph's height. They're 6'6" or something, you know, how they shoot them in these movies. But then when you realize they're just like, you know, it's like the women you see, you know, like I met Jenny McCarthy, and, you know, Jenny McCarthy's like 5'6" or something like that.
That's
you know,
pretty
she's like
tall for a woman.
She's a little thing.
You know.
5'6"?
Yeah.
Then maybe she's shorter then. She was short. I was like, wow, she's like a little, like not petite as in petite body, but I was a little short girl. I was like, wow, you know, it's like, it's like you always, because there's it's like Tom Cruise, you know, or even Pacino, you know, you always see Pacino's always wearing those Cuban heels, you know, to give himself a little height.
Yeah.
You know, so you don't realize film can completely distort your perception of how tall these people are. You know, I mean, even like you take a guy like Brad Garrett, who's so tall that when they made the Jackie Gleason biopic for TV, they had to have every other actor wear lifts, and they had to actually do the door frames in perspective so that he didn't seem so tall. It looked like that he was Jackie Gleason's height. Jackie Gleason was probably like, you know, 5'8", 5'9", 5'10".
Yeah.
You know,
Did they also like build trenches or something like they did for Clifford or whatever for him for that Jackie Gleason movie.
They might have. I mean, they did that a lot with what's his face with on Shane. They did that with what's his name who played Shane. They used to have to always have everybody else because he was such a smaller Alan Ladd. They had to because he was a short guy, so they'd always have someone like a foot lower than him. And that's a funny story on The Magnificent Seven because Yul Brynner was a short Yul Brynner was a short guy and he was supposed to be the star of the movie. And McQueen didn't like it, so they would make a mound for Yul Brynner to stand on for like the scene. And then as the day would go on, between takes, McQueen would just casually walk over and smoke a cigarette and just chip away a little and no one would notice. So by the end of the day, the mound is kind of gone. So Yul Brynner's just, he's shorter as it's just these funny things that they do, this rivalry. So yeah, but there's this huge height differential. So you're right. It's like, but Stallone is like it's like that crazy stuff everyone talks about now, Christian Bale or like, like Bradley Cooper gaining all that weight for American Sniper, like these, it's there's one side of it for me where it's like, yeah, that's astounding. But at the other side of it, these people are getting paid so much money and they have the time to take 6 months with a trainer to do all that. Then it is plausible because you're not doing it on your own. It's not like you have a day job, you're going 9 to 5, and you're doing it on your own.
Day job.
Yeah, exactly. You're getting paid so much money. Your day job is to work out twice a day and, and then, maybe just, bulk up on carbs over the weekend and then be real lean during the week and starve yourself. But, he got to a point, like you're saying, Stallone in 85 and you see that clearly too, when he's got his shirt off in Rambo 2. I mean, he is freaking just jacked, and he's so sinewy, but he's just, we're like Schwarzenegger has more mass because he was like, the bodybuilding champion of pumping iron, but Stallone is, even though he has a sinewy frame, he's still just jacked, So it's these transformations you see these people get, like a guy like De Niro who'd put on like 50 pounds for Jake LaMotta, but then drop it in the next movie. Like you seem that it sounds so dangerous. Or Gary Oldman losing all that weight to play Sid Vicious, where the doctors are like, this is not healthy, you can't do this. Or Christian Bale for The Machinist or something.
Yeah.
But they can do that because they have the time and they have the proper means to do it. But you're right. He's at this point where he's just like freaking the best shape he'll ever be in, to the point where it's almost like it's almost to his body's detriment,
Yeah. At some point he hooked up with some company. This is going back from like my days of just being kind of totally obsessed with Sylvester Stallone when I was a teenager. So much so that I would go to the library in school and break out like the microfiche and read interviews that he did for magazines. I'd be like sitting in the library.
Yeah, I do that with Eastwood, People don't, that's a lost form, going to find the microfilm and putting the microphone in the microphone reader and microfilm. And man.
So I just remember
going through the card catalog.
I remember reading something where he hooked up with some company and it was just, he like basically just stopped eating and just drank like shakes, like nutritional shakes.
To get all that protein.
Yeah. To be able to do that. And then when he did Copland, he was like, that was the first food I'd eaten in like a decade was to gain the weight to do Copland. I'm going to talk about the score a little bit just because it's so important. It's important to every Rocky movie, but for me, it's so important to my love for this movie. Bill Conti, the great Bill Conti, had scored the 3 previous Rocky movies, although for the most part, his music for the third one is just taking things he had done for the first 2 movies. And by that point, he had already done Karate Kid by Rocky IV. And I think he was working on Karate Kid 2, and he couldn't do Rocky IV. And I also saw that there was tell of some kind of falling out that he and Bill Conti had, and maybe it was because of Karate Kid. So I don't really know what's true, if he was already hired to do Karate Kid 2 and he couldn't do Rocky IV, or he and Stallone had a falling out and he did do Rocky IV, or both, or maybe that falling out was because of Karate Kid 2.
It's like the Spinell-Stallone fallout. Like, we don't know what happened there, but there was some sort of falling out too, which is sad,
Yeah. So he ends up coming back and doing what score there is in Rocky V, even though Rocky V is really full of a lot of really dated hip hop music of the period. And then he does Rocky Balboa. But at this point, Conti's out. And I think they're already filming, and they don't have a composer yet.
And what's the problem with just recycling some of the classic?
Yeah, I don't know, because they are already kind of done that, but maybe because like they're introducing such a different character,
and they got more pop songs maybe too.
Yeah,
so
it's definitely more pop song oriented. And maybe that was his plan. Maybe his plan was just to do that. But if we go back a year or two,
I don't mean to keep stopping you, but don't they add in the director's cut? They add in the iconic song, right?
Yeah,
at the end.
They do put back in some of Conti's music in the director's cut,
yeah,
to play up some of the emotional aspects. I mean, it feels like the director's cut's part of its goal is to. And I don't know this, but if you look at it, you do kind of feel like maybe some of what Stallone's trying to do is make it feel the way the other ones did, a little closer. Ultimately, as much as I like a lot of what's going on in the director's cut, specifically some of the attempts to make Drago more humanized, the stuff with Tony Burton, the commission scene. The commissioner scene is good. That's the kind of thing, like, it was a lean 90 minutes. Why couldn't they have kept that?
Yeah, because it just explains, because if you're just trying to get the montage of the papers so quickly, you may not get why, why it's a big, like, why he needs to go to Russia, why it's not a sanctioned fight, all this stuff. Yeah.
Why he's not getting paid for it, and all that. So there's a lot that I like about the director's cut. I like the addition of the Bill Conti's music, because that music means something very special to me. Where it kind of falls short, where it doesn't work, in my opinion, is rhythmically. What happens is...
Well, I'm sorry, what doesn't?
Like the director's cut as a whole.
Okay.
Because he's adding all this stuff, even though he's losing things, because like you said, it only ends up being like 2 minutes shorter. He loses the birthday scene and the robot and all that stuff. But what happens is he keeps the montages, but it makes it feel like we sprint and then we stop. And then we walk for a while, and then we sprint again during a montage, and then we stop and we walk a bit, and then we have to sprint again. It feels very uneven. It feels very off balance. And it's understandable, because, I mean, even though he clearly did go in and like recut the whole movie, because, like I said, so much of the movie is still the same, but with different takes from the actors, different angles from, like, some of the
stuff he's like, I haven't seen this since '85.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't even realize he had some of the footage.
Yeah.
Like the alternate takes.
But even like the press conferences, like, he shoots that all from like the reporter's point of view in the director's cut. Like, instead of the close-ups, it's much more like long shots. So even though like he clearly did a lot of recutting, it would have taken like completely a reimagining the entire movie to get rid of those montages, because they're such an important part of that movie, and they're so iconic in the music.
Do you notice, is it, watching the director's cut, is it any way noticeable to someone like me who hasn't seen it in so many years that it's an alternate take of it? Like, it's not like you're noticing a degradation of quality, or no, it just looks flawed. They've been able to like up it up so it looks great.
I'd say as a whole, the movie does not look as good as the theatrical cut. I mean, I really get the sense that this was kind of like a pet project, and I don't know this, but I get the sense that it really was this pet project that Stallone wanted to do, and there really wasn't a whole lot of money thrown into it. So Like, I feel like they didn't go the extra mile to make everything look, it doesn't look like it's a work print, it's all scratched up or anything. It definitely looks like it's polished, but I feel like it doesn't look as polished as, like, it's a little, like, the colors are more saturated. It's more,
like grainy and stuff, or
yeah, it's more contrasty, which,
or like color correction.
yeah, like it's not color corrected the same way, and I just feel like it just doesn't look as good as like the regular movie does. But no, I don't think someone who doesn't know the fourth movie by heart the way I do, like shot for shot, I'm sure there's stuff that I didn't even notice is a different take. You know what I mean? Like, there's definitely like angles that if you really know, you're like, okay, this was a long shot, and then this was a close up, and now it's a long shot. But even that, like, contextually in the story, if you're just in the movie, you're not going to think anything of it. You do the stuff I think you'll notice in terms of different takes will be the more where he chooses takes that have a different emotional, visually emotional, like, impact, like Drago being impacted by the crowd, looking at the crowd and clearly being affected by the fact that they're booing him. Or, like I said, Brigitte Nielsen taking that drag, but having a look of worry on her face, because of that stuff, you'll remember that Drago had no emotion. And now he had, like that stuff.
What are you seeing? Him like flinching and stuff, or he
just looks a little more. You know how when he's coming up and he sees like the light,
he's like perplexed, and
it's like a sense of like wonder almost of like what's going on. It's more like that, but you can see that like he's just
the unease.
He's just not as stoic. He's not as like machine like when he looks at the crowd. You can tell Stallone does a good job of picking these little moments where there's a performance in there that has a little bit of more of a emotional trigger than just the Terminator, standing in the ring.
Like a little more nuanced.
Yeah, slightly. There's a little more acting going on than just like flat, like I said, like a machine. But rhythmically is, for me, that's what doesn't work about the director's cut. It just feels uneven. It feels like you're starting and stopping as opposed to just a nice flow to the whole thing. With that said, for anybody who hasn't seen it, who likes the Rocky movies, you definitely have to check it out, or just see if you can find the scenes. But even in the context of the movie, it's cool to watch those scenes. I think there's a lot of really great stuff in it. Conti's music, that's another thing where like Conti's music is such a part of the Rocky series that I feel like the first time I watched and as much as I love the Vince DiCola score, I think the first time I watched the director's cut, I probably didn't even notice that the music was different, because that's the music that plays when Adrian and Rocky are together. Like Conti's music is such a part, is a character.
Does he take all the DiCola stuff out?
No, a lot of the Vince DiCola stuff is still in there. He just kind of strategically places, and it's not even like gonna fly now. It's like some of the Adrian and Rocky stuff, you just get like some of that ambient emotional stuff when it comes between them. Because that's one of music's biggest functions in a movie, is obviously the emotional aspect of the movie, but also like identifying characters. Characters have their own themes. Certain locations will have their own theme in a movie. So the Conti's music is such a part of the language of the Rocky movies that you almost don't even notice it being there, because like you can't imagine it not being there. And a lot of that stuff between Adrian and Rocky isn't in the in the theatrical cut. So he's also kind of using that to make it feel more like the other movies, but he's not like replacing DiCola's stuff. He's just kind of working it in. DiCola is... Yeah,
so you were saying that they got into this kind of riff. We don't know why.
Yeah. So going back to... He meets how he meets Vince DiCola is Frank Stallone, who's a musician, Stallone's brother, who's a singer and a songwriter. He is
got a great cameo on Tombstone.
Great cameo on Tombstone. He's in LA and he wants to start a new band, and he ends up seeing this guy perform at a nightclub in LA called the Red Onion, and it was a keyboard player named Vince DiCola, and he really liked what Vince DiCola was doing. So he goes up to Vince DiCola and he says, "Hey, I'm starting a new band. Would you want to come in and audition to play keyboards in the band?" And Vince DiCola's like, "Sure." Vince DiCola was from, I forget where, but he was not from LA. Like, he traveled to LA like so many artists do, go to New York or LA to pursue, a career. So he and Vince DiCola and Frank Stallone, they get on like gangbusters, and I don't even think that band really kind of takes off initially. It's just kind of like the two of them. And around that time is when Stallone is making Staying Alive. And of course the Bee Gees are going to be a part of it, but Stallone wants to work in other music. So he says to his brother, "Hey, Frank, I know you got this thing going on. You're a musician. I can't show you favoritism, but if you got songs, I'll listen to them. And if I think they'll work in the movie, I'll use them."
For Staying Alive.
So DiCola, Frank Stallone goes back to DiCola, says, "Hey, my brother's making a movie." He says he'll listen
Who's
to
your brother?
He says he'll use if he likes something. So they cut like 5 songs, and Frank Stallone pays for studio time to go and record them. So he puts his own money into it, and he goes and he gives a tape to Sylvester Stallone, and Stallone listens to them and he says, "Nah, like none of this. This doesn't work. Sorry." So Frank Stallone goes back and says to
Hope he reimbursed him.
Vince, "Yeah, he didn't take any of the songs, but I know what my brother likes, and I think we can come up with something. We need something that's like, it's got a good beat. It's got some momentum. It's got a little bit of rock. It's about, like succeeding. Let's try to put something that feels like basically what like a Rocky movie feels like, but in a song." So they go into Vince's house and they dig up Vince goes on the keyboards and they basically just record it on just like a boom box, just to get it out, just the kind of a sketch, kind of a demo. And I did not put it in my notes of what the song is called, but I'll look it up because it's a famous song, most famous for a Saturday Night Live sketch, actually, for our generation. So they do this like demo, and he's like, "Okay, I'm going to go run this over to Sly." And Vince DiCola's like, "What? You can't have him listen to that. It sounds like shit. You need to go back in the studio and record." He's like, "No, I'm not going to spend more money on it. Let me just go and play it for him. And trust me, I think he's going to like it." So he goes and plays it for Stallone, and Stallone loves it. So Stallone's like, "Yeah." And it ends up being kind of like the main theme from Staying Alive, even though obviously other than the Bee Gees song, Staying Alive. So he takes this crappy sounding demo to Stallone, and Stallone loves it. So Frank goes back and says, "Hey, he loves it. We're going to go into the studio. We're really going to record it." And it's the song Far From Over, it's really energetic. It was kind of like the standout hit from the Staying Alive soundtrack, because the song Staying Alive was really the hit from the first Saturday Night Fever soundtrack. As I kind of said before, it's kind of, for our generation, I think we know it better from the Saturday Night Live skit with Martin Short.
Yeah, Martin Short being like the special kid, like I think by the pool.
Yeah, they're doing they want to be synchronized swimmers.
Yeah,
him and his brother.
Yeah, he's got the bathing cap on and Speedos, of course.
And it's a great song. And then
great skit.
Stallone puts that in, and then I think he also ends up putting in the 5 other songs that he originally rejected. So the Staying Alive soundtrack is very heavy on Frank Stallone music, which Vince DiCola kind of co-wrote and, performed on. So now where kind of Vince DiCola gets involved is
And how does that movie doesn't do as well, right?
I don't think it does great. I like it. I mean, it's definitely it's an acquired taste. I mean, I think when you watch it and you think about the context and the year and you put it in between Rocky 3 and Rocky 4, that this is like the movie that he directs. It's in New York City, and, you know, because I live here, and it's all like in the theater district because he's trying to be a professional dancer on Broadway. So it's like, you know, already you already capture my heart because like all these places are within walking distance from my apartment.
Sure.
So how Vince DiCola goes from co-writing pop songs for Staying Alive to scoring a movie is this guy named Robin Garb, who was Frank Stallone's manager and was also Sylvester Stallone's music supervisor for like Rocky 3 and going to be the music supervisor for Rocky 4. Basically what a music supervisor does is he's the guy that gets like the songs, like the copywritten material that's going to be in the movie. So you have the composer who's writing the score. Music supervisor is the guy that says, oh, okay, I can get this song No Easy Way Out for this driving montage in Rocky 4. So music supervisor is the guy that like figures out and makes the deals for the copyrights, finds the songs. He'll likely bring a bunch of songs to Stallone and say like, this is what I can get access to because I know this person or that person, and we can probably get a good deal to use these songs. And so because he's Frank Stallone's manager and he's Sly's music supervisor, he's Vince DiCola. He kind of starts representing as a manager Vince DiCola as well because he's representing Frank. So he goes to Vince DiCola. He says, hey, Sly's making Rocky 4. Conti's out. It's kind of up in the air what's going to happen musically with the movie. The way you compose and with all your keyboards and stuff, it's Robin Garb who's like, I think you could be a film composer. Is that something that would interest you? And DiCola's like, yeah, that would be, I would love to do that. He's like, okay, here's the plan. Sly he's all caught up with, you know, development for Rocky 4. What I'm going to do is, as I start to read the script, and I start to hear plot points that are happening in the script, when I start to hear this stuff, I'm going to come to you and I'm going to say, you write a piece of music that would fit this moment in a movie. And you write like just conceptual music based on that piece of information, not even reading the script, just like there's a training montage. There's a moment where this happens, you know, somebody's going to die in the ring, write us. So the first 2 tracks that DiCola ends up writing is the training montage and then War, which is the piece that plays during the fight. So he does like 5 or 6 of these pieces of music and he gives them to Robin Garb, and Robin Garb walks into Stallone's trailer with a Walkman and headphones, puts them on and says, I want you to listen to this. He hits play. Stallone's listening to it. And he's like, who the hell is this dude? Like, this is amazing. Like, I really like this. And he's like, who's this? And Robin Garb, it's Vinny DiCola. And he's like, the guy who plays keyboards for my brother? He's like, the same. And he's like, well, let's get him. So that's how Vince DiCola ends up scoring Rocky 4. And then because he scored Rocky 4, he ends up scoring like, Transformers, the movie.
So that's his first scoring gig.
Yeah, that's his first film scoring gig is Rocky 4.
Now, is Sly's directorial debut Staying Alive?
No, because Sly directs Paradise Alley.
Oh, yes. Okay.
And then Rocky 2 and Rocky 3.
Oh, okay.
Paradise Alley is, I think, his directorial debut because when he's on set of Rocky 2, Paradise Alley comes out and flops.
Yeah.
And it's like he's directing a movie. He's directing his sophomore, he's rocking his follow-up to his debut album in the middle of when his debut album kind of flops at the box office. So it's like the pressure's even like,
yeah,
he's got to succeed on Rocky 2. The soundtrack itself, classic, you know, taking Vince DiCola out of it. Thus, we get Burning Heart by Survivor, Hearts on Fire, which DiCola co-writes. We get Living in America.
Is Living in America written or placed for the movie, or is that already something?
I don't know if that was written specifically for the movie or not. It obviously fits, and it's equated. You know, it's what we think of when we hear Living in America. No Easy Way Out also. Like, I don't know if that is written for the movie or if that's a piece by Robert Tepper that Stallone just likes and puts in. That's probably, aside from Living in America, No Easy Way Out is probably the most famous song from the soundtrack.
Because I would be bold as to say that the soundtrack is almost as iconic as the movie.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's certainly, in the 90s, a CD came out called The Rocky Story, which was like an attempt to be a compilation of Rocky music. And it was basically the Rocky IV soundtrack, which I think had Eye the Tiger on it, even though Eye the Tiger is from 3. Eye the Tiger is at the beginning of Rocky IV. So I think Eye the Tiger makes it to the Rocky IV soundtrack also. So this Rocky Story CD, which I still own to this day from...
As you should own all your physical media.
But before I collected all the other Rocky music, this was the first Rocky CD I had.
Because the DiCola soundtrack doesn't come out till like 2010, right? Of the score of the movie.
Which
in
one?
Its entirety.
The Rocky
DiCola
score?
Yeah.
That doesn't come out till, more recent, much more recently.
2010.
But the Rocky Story CD was basically Rocky IV soundtrack and Gonna Fly Now from the original Rocky, and that was it. So this soundtrack was big, and it to this day is workout music for many people. Now, allegedly, interesting tidbit. I don't know if this is true, but I read that Stallone ended up passing on Peter Cetera's Glory of Love, which became the main song for Karate Kid 2, which is also a song I love.
Which is weird because that's what Conti's working on.
Yeah.
But that happens a lot because I forget, there's another example of a podcast movie we covered where they wrote the song and it didn't make it in that, but then it was in the other movie and then it became iconic.
Yeah.
But it escapes me now which movie that is. There were 2 movies that are.
It probably did better being in Karate Kid 2 because there was so much less competition song-wise.
Saw that in the theater.
Yeah, I saw that in the theater too.
And I had the novelization. And then I bought in 2nd grade, my parents said I needed reading glasses because I was reading so bad, but it was just I had dyslexia. No one diagnosed it. Yeah. And I went to the reading glass store, and the only reason I got the pair of glasses is because it had Karate Kid on the side of the frame here.
I wish you still had those.
Yeah, they're huge. They were like this big. It wouldn't fit me now because they're kids' glasses. But I saw that. I was like, I want those. And I don't know why I had a Karate Kid decal because it didn't. I don't know.
Nobody's wearing it.
It's like, they're like, just put a Karate Kid decal on. Yeah, don't worry.
Daniel doesn't wear glasses, but who cares?
And then it's like, it came right off when you got the glasses, but I don't know.
Yeah.
So,
now this music means so much to me that in 2018, I was making my annual trip to LA, September. And I was, I had the trip was kind of planned and I had an out date. Little Cody Carpenter.
Cody Carpenter.
Little Cody Carpenter. Cody Carpenter emails me and says, or maybe I emailed him and said, I'm coming to LA.
But this is also at the time when you're laying out Score to Death, right? The first book?
18. It was after the first one was already out. I might have been working on the second one. But before the first one came out, I started going to LA like once a year just to hang out with composers.
As you do.
I was lucky enough to become friendly with, at first friendly with several composers. Now it's been 10 years. believe it or not, this is the 10th anniversary. This July will be the 10th anniversary of when the first book came out. I was blessed to make friends with some amazing people, and then through those people, or through being in LA, meet other people, and I'm lucky enough to have people that I can hang out with when I'm in LA. So I would go every year to do score death related stuff, or just keep up friendships and relationships and business relationships, and just see people. But so I'm going to LA, and it's I don't know whether I email Cody, or Cody by that point had been on our podcast. I interviewed Cody for an episode of a sidecast and Cody is John Carpenter's son and a musician, and now does a lot of scoring with his father and does the albums with his father.
Tours with him and stuff.
Yeah, tours and does soundtracks and albums. So Cody's an extremely talented keyboard player. So, and I knew through interviewing him and just knowing him that he's a huge Vince DiCola fan. So he emails me, he says, hey, Vince DiCola is playing at the Whiskey A Go-Go in September. And if you're in town, you should come check it out. And I said, I am going to be in town, but I'm leaving before that, unfortunately. So then I thought about it, and I was like, I ended up staying in LA for a whole extra week just so I could go see Vince DiCola live.
Is that when you did your walking tour? You had those days where you had nothing to do and you walked around?
Yeah, probably. I spent a lot of time on my own as well when I'm in LA, because, people are only available for dinner or whatever. So daytimes, it's a lot of just exploring LA and doing things and going to see, doing tours of film studios, or going on walking tours on my own just to find like filming locations from like Halloween and Nightmare on Elm Street and stuff like that.
It's a little dangerous now, but it's 10 years ago.
So I waited and I went to, I had never been to the Whiskey A Go-Go, iconic club. And so I went there. I had talked a friend of mine into coming with me, and who lives in San Diego. I had seen him, and he was going back to San Diego, and I said, well, I'm going to see Vince DiCola. He's like, you know what? Screw it. I'll come back up for Vince DiCola. So me and my buddy Scott went to see Vince DiCola. He did a show. He did a set, which was called like, I forget what it was called, but he did a set of like really awesome, like progressive rock music.
Was Cody going with you too, or he just told you?
No. So why Cody comes up is because Cody was playing in his band. Cody was like the second keyboarder in his keyboard player in his band. But the show was Vince DiCola played with like one band the first set, then there was an intermission, and then he did like Vince DiCola and Friends, and he did like his film related music. And Cody played in the second band. And, as you know, Dion, like I'm a concert goer. Like you and I have been to 1 million concerts together, but I've also been to like, at one point I was like during COVID, I was like trying to figure out how many concerts I'd been to. I was trying to like mark down, okay, I saw in like 1989, I saw Billy Joel. And I was just like going through, I got up to like 200 something. And I was like, I don't know. Like once you get to like the John Pizzarelli shows, I've seen John Pizzarelli 150 times.
You're certainly more of the outrovert. I kind of don't like big crowds, so I've kind of stopped going to mega shows. But you love those.
I haven't been to a show in a long time but I used to go a lot. My point is, I go to a lot of concerts, and I've seen a lot of great bands. From you and I saw the Cream reunion, Black Sabbath, to
Buddy Guy about 5 times.
Buddy Guy, Bobby
Billy
Bland,
Joel, Robert Plant, Zeppelin. Yeah.
I've seen I've seen a lot of great. The Vince DiCola show is absolutely one of my favorite concerts of all time. It was so awesome. That band was so tight to play. They did a bunch of stuff from Transformers, and he had a vocalist come up for a couple of songs. So they had some vocalists come up and do, you got the touch,
Stan Bush stuff. Yeah,
Stan Bush stuff. And then and then the guy came up and did Far From Over from Staying Alive, and he did Hearts on Fire from this. But the show ends with the whole night ended with training montage, war, and then Hearts on Fire. Daniel Davies, who is the guy who is like Carpenter's godson, who he does all the scores with. Carpenter's more recent scores were with Daniel and Cody. Daniel was there, and I said, "Hey, Daniel, come take us." I had a table, so I was like, so Daniel sat with us. And I got so emotional when the Rocky stuff hit. I was like, by Hearts of Fire encore, like tears were like going down, like sliding down my cheeks. The Rocky music, Conti's music, of course, but even DiCola's music is such like an emotional trigger for me. It's like it's Pavlovian. It's like Pavlov's dogs. If I hear it, like I can't help it. I just start crying. And hearing it live, and the band was so goddamn tight. It was shocking how good it sounded. Long story, semi-shorter. I want to tell you that if you want to see it, recently, I think just before Christmas, Vince DiCola ended up putting that whole set of the film music stuff on his YouTube page.
Oh, I'll watch that.
There's
I'll start
video.
crying over the Transformer stuff.
There's video
of the night you saw it, or just that tour?
Of that night.
At the whiskey.
At the whiskey, yeah. Oof. So if you go to Vince DiCola's YouTube page, you can watch. There is some of the stuff from that first set, which he posted like, closer to when it happened. But just like, I think going into Christmas this year, fall or early winter this year, he announced on Facebook that he was going to put up all the videos. So it's not like 1 hour. It's not like an hour long and a half video. It's each song from the concert. Totally worth checking out.
I'll definitely check that out. But that must have been such a trip. I've always wanted to go to the whiskey. I don't know if it's still set up as it was, the layout as it was back in the day, but that must have been such a. Was that your first time at the whiskey? Yeah,
that's the first time. That's the only. At the time, that had been the only concert I had seen in LA. And so to me, it was like very fitting that it was film music related, that it was on the Sunset Strip at the whiskey. It was like merging a lot of things. It was kind of like the perfect show for me to go see at that time. Novelization stuff. We mentioned Drago. I think a very interesting plot point that gets cut from the movie and is why Adrian is so opposed to him fighting Drago is that in the novelization, she's pregnant. And it's revealed that she had been pregnant since before Apollo's fight. So the stakes are so much higher.
Does he know or no?
Yeah, I think...
It's not like she reveals it to him on his way to Moscow.
Yeah, oh, by the way, don't go, I'm pregnant.
Yeah.
Although...
He told me this now.
Oddly enough, my recollection is when she goes to Moscow to meet with him, like they never talk, like it's like forgotten by then. There's also... I can't remember the details. I haven't read it since I first got it, which was like 10 years ago.
And you said that he wrote Rocky 2 novelization?
I am pretty sure he did actually write the Rocky 2
And you said that he wrote it from Rocky's entire point of view?
It's all from Rocky's point of view. This one is not. This one also has a lot more with Paulie and the robot, I think. And
but does that mean that in the director's cut, then a lot of Paulie stuff's cut out too? Then, right?
Yeah, I don't know if they got to the shooting stage or not in the script, or if it was just earlier drafts.
Because I've really enjoyed the Paulie stuff in the weird theatrical cut.
Some weird anomalies from the novelization. Paulie's birthday in the novelization is his 40th birthday.
Gee.
Which I guess makes sense, because if the Rocky's like 30 and 76, and you say, okay, Paulie's about Rocky's age, mate.
I always thought of him being older.
Yeah, but if he's close, I don't know. But
that's everything you always say to me. We bring up Rocky IV. Happy birthday, Paulie.
Happy birthday, Paulie. And the other weird thing about just to put you in the context of the novelization is 156 pages long. They don't get to Russian to page 128.
Wow.
So there is a lot more going on.
I mean, even Dolph said too, like, I saw an interview with him and he was like, you know, Stallone had written a 50-page script of just their fight at the end of the movie that he had to, like, you know, left punch, then right, then left. So they had like 5 months to actually memorize like that 50-page breakdown of the fight, which is incredible too, on top of the shooting script.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's always mentioned, maybe because it was Dolph who talked about it, but that's something that happened in the first movie. You know, they were trying to come up with it. And John G. Avildsen, who directed the first movie and also Karate Kid, and you can actually find a whole cut of Karate Kid was with John G. Avildsen's filming the rehearsals on a VHS tape.
Yeah.
So he was always filming. He filmed everything.
And we did the Karate Kid on here. So I think we originally on the old Mother site, we had a link to that. If you went to our webpage, we had a link to all those VHS, you know, rehearsals.
So same with Rocky IV. He shot everything like on Super 8. The fight, like the choreo, you know, and they were trying to choreograph it. And finally it was Avildsen who said to Stone, like, just go home and write it. And he's like, what do you mean? He's like, just like you did the script, write it. Like, what happens in the fight? Like, Stallone, they come out, they meet in the middle of the ring. Who throws the first punch? What punch is it? Like, and so it was kind of Avildsen, I think, who kind of set the standard of like that's how Stallone would approach the fights. And maybe by 2 and 3, he felt like he didn't need to do it anymore. And maybe maybe he didn't do it then. But Rocky IV, he brings it back and it says. Yeah, it's reportedly a 55-page script. The other kind of interesting thing about the fight is that, and this is kind of, I think, become a more popular piece of trivia, is that like Dolph Lundgren almost killed Stallone in the fight because early on when
he wanted everything to be like they're making contact.
Yeah,
it was like Raging Bull. And you see that, certainly you see that in the close-ups, the slow-mos.
Yeah.
So you can get those effects. But like he wanted, and this is lauded as they're using like real punch sounds as opposed to like, you know, the Foley guys like punching a watermelon or something to get that sound. They're using, you know, and then they say there's other special effects that were groundbreaking in the fight sequences, which I didn't quite understand what they meant by that.
Yeah.
And then I saw a little 2-minute clip of Dolph and Sly hanging for Creed 2 talking about, and then they're talking about the Rocky 4 fight behind him. They have it on TV, and they're like, and Sly mentions like those gloves they don't even use anymore. They've outlawed those gloves in boxing because you can really kill somebody with those gloves. So whatever weight those gloves are, they don't even use them anymore.
Yeah, you can tell they're really small.
Yeah.
So they were really making contact during the fight to capture the realism. And this was Stallone's, and I think was part of there's another side story about Carl Weathers quitting the movie because of this.
Which some people say it's because maybe Carl Weathers was a little intimidated about Dolph being this karate guy or being this, but I guess at some point he threw Weathers, and Weathers like actually broke character and was like screaming and swearing at him and then quit for 4 days, and they, you know, and then like Dolph's like, sorry, I'll tone it down or whatever. And then, you know, Sly kind of got him back.
Yeah.
But they shoot that fight up in Vancouver, the Russian match. So they're up in Vancouver, and that's doubling for Moscow. And this, you know, they wanted to make it, whatever arena they got it in Vancouver, they wanted to make it look very futuristic looking, much like the lead up of Russia with the tech oriented stuff they're using for his training, Drago.
Yeah. And so they're making contact, and in one take, Dolph Lundgren punches Stallone in the chest, and it causes his like the tissue around his heart to swell.
Yeah, it's called pericardio effusion, I think it's called. But he got winded at first and didn't realize.
Yeah.
And then that night when he went home, he was having problems breathing in the hotel room or something. So they had to airlift him. He went to the hospital, and then they realized it was very serious. His heart swelled.
Yeah.
And then they had to fly him low altitude.
About it, it would have the swelling around his heart would have like basically choked his heart out, caused it to not beat anymore.
So they had to like fly him low altitude back to L.A., and then he was out of the game for like 10 days or something in intensive care to like get the monitor and to make sure everything went back, you know.
And the doctor said, like, this is the kind of injury that we only see in car accidents, like people hitting the steering column, like their chest hitting like the steering column. And so it was basically like Dolph Lundgren hit him so hard it was like getting hit by a car.
And Sly's like, well, have you seen Dolph Lundgren? I mean, like, you know, he is like a truck, you know.
Let's see. What other stuff to cover here? There was a lawsuit.
Yeah.
This guy, Timothy Anderson, developed a treatment for Rocky IV after seeing Rocky III. And I don't know Timothy Anderson's work, but somehow was able to pitch it to MGM and Stallone. And they passed on it. But then he sued when Rocky IV came out because he said it was pretty close to his treatment for the idea he had come up with. He'd written like a 30-page thing.
Oh, I thought it was a spec script. I'd be wondering if that leaked on the internet to see if there's any credence to that.
Yeah, I heard a couple. I heard both, but I heard treatment more times in researching it than I did script. So I tend to believe it just because unless they could all be citing the same thing. But ultimately he sued saying that they kind of stole his idea, but ultimately the court said, well, they didn't hire you to do it. You kind of did it on your own using their characters, using copywritten material.
Like a spec script. So then you're kind of out because you're using stuff that's not your property.
Yeah, like they own it. So so ultimately it was a derivative work, meaning that if we were to write a Rocky movie right now, like we don't own Rocky, so we couldn't make it.
See, I would hear in the old days, Paramount was open for Star Trek. You could write a spec script, send it to them, and if they liked it, they may even use it for an episode or something.
Yeah, I feel like it was always, even with Next Generation.
Yeah, I feel like it was the Next Generation years that they were doing that. But, you know, now, as you and I both know in the audience, is that, like, you know, that's why a lot of times there's that wall to get to. People won't accept spec scripts for that reason.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's just why, but it's like they don't want to get a spec script, read it, decline it, and then do something similar, and then you sue them saying, hey. So a lot of times that's why you have to have an agent or somebody or a lawyer to pass them to it, and then maybe you sign some sort of agreement so that, you know, what do you have to lose? But if we see this, we don't like it, you sign an agreement saying, well, if we do something similar, you can't sue us, that kind of a thing.
Yeah. So that's why places don't take scripts that are unsolicited. So this guy ended up losing. He did appeal, but I think even in the appeal, he may have lost. Although I did see something that maybe he might have got some kind of little settlement after the appeal. But I don't think
just go away.
Yeah, but even then, I don't know. I think other than that.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting because then, you know, I've always hated the Rotten Tomatoes. Everyone always values everything from Rotten Tomatoes, and this has such a low score Rotten Tomatoes, and it's just like, it just proves, like, who cares what the critics say? It's just silly. Like these, you know, it's like, you know, these movies are held in such high regards, and then you look at like critics who pan the movies, and then they like, so that's something with Siskel and Ebert always, you know, like they may hate something, now it's a cult classic or whatever.
Yeah,
you know?
I mean, it's such a weird thing, you know, a movie criticism. I mean, yes, I could see people. Here's the thing. You can make a movie that doesn't work on a lot of levels. It's cheesy, doesn't, you know, is not maybe technically great, blah, blah, blah. But all the movie has to really do, or any work of art for that matter, is elicit an emotional response. And that's something that Stallone knows how to do, like, expertly.
Yeah, so I think that's kind of the point of our show, isn't it?
Yeah.
Where it's like, yeah, this movie could be deemed a terrible movie, but we may like it or the listeners may like it for whatever reason.
Yeah. I mean, I guess you're right. I mean, the original concept of this, like however long ago, was that we were like, let's cover movies that don't get talked about like Citizen Kane, but we'll talk about them like they're Citizen Kane.
Yeah. Even if it's like everybody has their favorite movie, no matter, if you hate Tremors, but there's a guy out there who loves Tremors and that's his movie, or, The Video Dead, whatever the obscure thing it is.
Yeah.
It could be a terrible movie, but there are going to be people who may hold it in a high regard, and not to compare those with this or whatever, but, it's like, if these, it happens a lot with critical successes, especially in this genre. You get action movies and stuff now where it's, the movie makes so much money and it's so well received, but then, critics say it's stupid, they hate it, doesn't get nominated or whatever, but the money's made and people love it, and it derives all these sequels and stuff and lasting impressions, and it shapes people's lives. And, then maybe, like take one of my favorite movies of all time, Night of the Hunter, directed by Charles Laughton. That was panned when it came out, and then he died a couple of years later, and then now that's lauded as one of the most influential movies of all time because of all the stuff he was doing at the time. So sometimes movies are done, then they're just not. And we've said that before in the past. It's sad that you see, it takes you 30 years. You're going to have to wait around to get the recognition. Well, now it's a cult classic. It's like,
yeah, well, it happened with Carpenter and The Thing.
Yeah,
it's like
exactly.
That film almost ruined his career, but now it's considered one of the greatest horror movies of all time, and one of the great movies of all time. And when he asked Carpenter about it, he's like, "Yeah, well, where were you? Where were you when I needed you?"
Yeah.
Kind of thing. Well, look, I would never argue that Rocky IV is like this tremendous work of art. I don't think it's the best. It's not the best of the series, but it's one of my favorites of the series. I think nostalgia has a lot to do with it. I think it's the most watchable of the series. It moves at a clip. It's kind of such an oddity in pacing, tone, in its 80s-ness.
Well, it becomes the highest rated sports movie of all time until The Blind Side with that Quentin Aaron.
Yeah.
That movie with Sandra Bullock. So that's what, 25 years or whatever, if my math, going quickly off my shitty arithmetic.
And if we go by like just, inflation, it still might be, like it might have just been like movies cost $30
yeah.
to go to when Blind Side came out, as opposed to like $4 when Rocky IV came out.
Never seen that movie, but I've met him a bunch of times, and he's a very nice guy, that guy.
Yeah.
But I've never seen The Blind Side. A couple things too is so I guess then his brief hospitalization, Stallone, they say that kind of might have inspired Rocky V, because it shows the spiral of what, the punch drunkenness or the what it can do to a boxer or someone in that kind of, the other side of the sport, like of what, the toll it takes on the body and all that, which you definitely then see in Rocky Balboa and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Which I find interesting, because I think initially he was thinking of going a different way, maybe having the initial concept was having Drago have that kind of life where that we hear in Creed 2 in that scene where he's like, kind of like exiled from, ruins his life. He becomes an alcoholic, loses his job, and he doesn't have anything. People hate him. They turn his back on him, and but I guess because of this injury on Rocky IV, that kind of gives Sly the idea of Rocky V.
It would make sense.
And then I like there is the idea of that line of, where he's saying like, I'm seeing three of them, and then he's like, hit him in the middle. That's from a 1933 fight where Max Baer against the German Maximilian Schmeling, and the great Jack Dempsey was the ringside guy for Max Baer. And during one between the rounds, Max Baer comes back to the corner and is like, I'm seeing three of them. So evidently, famously, Jack Dempsey said, well, then hit the one in the middle.
Yeah.
And that's where he got it. And then the last bit, which is interesting, is that like Tony Burton, how we've been talking about the whole cast, I mentioned he's in The Shining. And as everyone knows, like Kubrick was like a chess master. And Burton played chess as well, and then you see that in Rocky IV. Maybe that's why they put it in, that he beats the Russian in that little scene playing chess. So supposedly while they were shooting The Shining, he beat Kubrick in a round of chess, which is kind of amazing because there's all these stories about Kubrick and like how he controlled George C. Scott on the set of Dr. Strangelove, because George C. Scott didn't want to ham up his performance so much. But he would do is he would kind of get him to play chess, because George C. Scott was a big chess player too. So George C. Scott would be staring at the board for however long. Stanley would walk by, make a move, and leave. And then George C. Scott's like, oh, what the fuck? And then he'd be there for another whatever looking, So I found that interesting too. But definitely, it's so iconic because it's, it hits in such a way for, especially I think Gen Xers. If you were old enough for this to come out, see it in the theater, or be around when it was there, and understand the seismic, just reverberations of this movie. I mean, they say that I think Sly brought it up to Camp David and showed it to Reagan, privately, which is not uncommon. They do that all the time for presidents. But at the end of the movie tonight, I was like, wow, it's like, Rocky, he ended the Cold War, because in 87 you get in Reykjavik, there's this big kind of summit where they're trying to talk about this. They're having negotiations between Gorbachev and Reagan about the Star Wars program, and Reagan gets pissed at Gorbachev and he walks out, and that was a very heated moment, and it kind of brings them together to realize that, hey, look, we have to come to some sort of terms here because we can't have this keep going the way it's going. It's kind of the plot of Superman 3, I think it is, which didn't do very well, but it's like the denuclearization of the world, and then
4,
that leads,
isn't it?
Is that 4? Yeah, you're right. 3 is Richard Pryor, so it's Superman 4, and that leads to they sign a pact. I think, what year is that? They signed the pact in maybe 80. Where's me notes? As I look through me notes. They signed the pact in, I don't know. They signed the pact around 88 or 89. And then, Reagan gives that speech in 87 in front of the Berlin Wall. Gorbachev tear down the wall. And then 86 is the Reykjavik summit. And then the resolution is signed in maybe 88, 89. And then the USSR falls in 89. And then by 91, it dissolves. And that's when the USSR disbands. And then you have Russia. And that leads to all this kind of chaos in the country. And then you have Boris Yeltsin comes into power and all this stuff. And then you get Boris Yeltsin comes out and you get Putin. And then Putin's been there ever since, So it was timely in a sense, because it kind of did start the ball rolling to kind of solve this tension we had, between the two countries, which is now kind of ramped up again.
Yeah.
But it was a good time.
Had by all.
Yes. So and as we said, this is one of your favorite movies. And then again, give credit where credit's due. It's just it's astonishing the level with Stallone there of being able to write all these things as well as direct or act in these things as well. It's quite an achievement. I guess lastly, before we wrap it up, what's your hot take on this new Rocky thing coming out? Whatever it's called. I Play Rocky, or I Play whatever the hell that movie's coming out. I just saw a teaser for it.
I honestly don't know much about it other than that I just saw the kid who's playing him.
I saw there's a teaser out, which I don't know how old it is, but I saw a teaser last night of it, and it looks pretty interesting.
I saw a teaser on YouTube, but it looked like AI to me. It looked like a fan thing and not a real one. So I don't know if what I saw is legit or not.
Oh, what I saw looked pretty real because there were scenes in it, and then the kid looked all right, but then when they had him on set as Rocky in a scene or two, he looked a lot like Stallone. I was like, wow, they've either CGI'd him a little bit or they've just made him up to look like it. But I usually hate these. Everyone told me how good the Godfather one was they did a couple years ago. And I'm just so sick of what's it called?
It was a TV show though, right?
Yeah, it was like a limited series on something like maybe like The Deal or something or whatever it is. And I hear that's great. And I'm not saying it isn't. I haven't watched it, but I hear from a lot of people it's really well done. It just, I don't know. Personally, like I've just been so turned off of cinema as of late these past couple of years, like, you know, how they're just mining anything that has any kind of, you know, temp pole to whatever our, you know, if it's a reboot or it's a sequel or whatever. So now they're going into these and they're making, so when I first heard about this, I'm like, oh God, then now they're making a movie about them making this movie. It's like, but then when I watched the trailer last night, I was like, oh, this looks like something I might actually see because it looks cool enough, but I don't know how it'll be.
Yeah.
But,
the Godfather show was good. I liked it.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. Everyone's like, you got to watch it if you like The Godfather. And I love The Godfather, you know, and it'd be cool to see. I'm not in any way against seeing a behind the scenes docudrama about them making something. That sounds really cool. But it's just that I'm inundated with this all the time, these kind of things. I'm just so sick of, I wish Hollywood would do something different.
Yeah.
But not
I
to
get
say that if I don't see that Godfather thing, it might be awesome, you know?
There was, I feel like 10 years ago or so, somebody had mentioned, I'd heard through the grapevine that somebody was doing that for Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And I was like, that's probably pretty interesting because that making of that movie is crazy.
That'd be like doing The Exorcist, though. I wonder if they would really, you know, show it how it was.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I don't. It never came out, so
I
I don't know what happened to it. It doesn't seem like it ever got made.
Yeah, so I don't know.
Well, I mean, I think, you know, I don't want to. We've been talking a long time, so I don't want to stretch this out anymore. I think why I think it would work for Rocky is because the Rocky movies themselves kind of chronicle Stallone's life. You know, like Rocky, he's like down and out. He was a down and out actor. He was the Rocky story, you know, like him getting that movie made was him getting the Apollo fight. Rocky 2 was, you know, a guy who had had one big hit, but what do you do now? You know, that's kind of what Rocky 2 is about. That's kind of what was happening to Stallone. Like he tried directing Paradise Alley. It didn't really work out. You know, he was like, okay, I wrote and starred in an Academy Award winning movie. What's next? That's kind of what is happening in Rocky 2. He doesn't know what's going to happen. He ends up doing the rematch, but Rocky.
And he's kind of doing Fist and Victory at that time, and they're not as huge as the other ones, you know, and Nighthawks is great, of course, but yeah, it's kind of like mirroring his career in real life.
And then Rocky 3 is like, he's a bona fide movie star. Rocky 3 is like, you know, he's a bona fide champion he's got money and fame, and that's what's happening to Stallone at the same time.
Yeah.
Rocky 4 is like, by that time, Stallone is, you know, at the height of his influence, his financial powers, his influence in Hollywood. He's an action star. Rocky 4 is the most action starry one of them all. So like the movies themselves kind of mimic his life. So to have a movie about him making Rocky, like it is an underdog story in and of itself. And I think that's why it probably could, you know, it has the potential to be something that
that's what the teaser lent to me. I was like, oh, actually, I might give this a shake and see it, you know. And it's interesting because, you know, Stallone had been acting, of course, prior to that. You know, he's in that Corman movie Capone. He's in a bunch of stuff, but he's in a very great episode of Kojak from season 3, which I love. And it's funny because you look at like, you know, Rambo or Rocky, you know, that he always gets a chance where he gives a monologue that's really good. Like the end monologue in Rambo always makes you cry, or various things in Rocky. He gets a monologue at the end of the Kojak episode. And it's like, how does he get that? And it's like, wow. It's like even him being, you know, a guest person who's, you know, at the time a nobody. He's just another actor that's rising, you know, James Woods. There's a lot of people who were just getting their start were on Kojak because it was a popular show. But following in the Stallone tradition, at the end of the episode, he has a little, like, I don't know, maybe like a 30-second monologue that's like, wow, it's a Stallone kind of monologue.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, that's really cool. It's like, I don't know how they did it, or, you know, or if that, I don't know if he had any control over that or whatever. But it's funny, you know, Tully's like, you do it, baby. I brought it up before. It's funny because I have a friend of mine that I work with who is an audio engineer, and he always tells me the story because I'm a big Kojak fan. He's like, you like Telly Savalas? He's like, he's like in the 80s when we were like in high school, you know, we went to when the Hard Rock first opened wherever it used to originally be. He's like, my friends and I were drinking there that night, and we look over, we're at a table, and Telly Savalas is walking by. So he's like, so as an asshole kid who's been drinking, I go, hey, Kojak, you got a lollipop for me? And he looks over to me, he's like, no, I don't, kid. He keeps walking. So it's like you say, like people like her, hey, Rock, there's people who are iconic as, now everyone's going to call you Kojak or whatever the hell they're going to call you, So it's funny. So it's starting off the year.
Nice wintry picture for us in the cold winter month of January.
Almost a Christmas movie too, because it's Christmas.
They do fight on Christmas.
Yeah, and he's listening to one of my favorite Christmas albums, the Chipmunks album. I have that on vinyl,
which is not in the director's cut.
Oh God!
And that I'm sure is probably a copyright thing. Not one.
I have the original, my mom's vinyl of that album, and that album's great. But that's for another discussion. But Rocky IV.
Check it out.
check it. If you haven't seen it, check it out. Going way down the alley, 1985.
This episode was a little scattered. We're getting back into the flow.
But also it's like we didn't have a rundown or a plan, so we just kind of jumped around, which we've done before.
We were just watching Rocky IV, and we decided let's talk about it. Start rolling.
Yeah, let's just jump on it. So we just didn't really. We jumped around because you had a lot to say about certain things, and I'm filling in the gaps of what I know or my reflection on it. So yeah, it was a little hapdash, but it's a solid going out and stuff, and and we're paying love to a great movie and stuff like that, and a great guy, So that's always fun. And like you said, we're trying this new thing where we're going to try to put something out more regularly and see if people like what we're doing. Aside from evidently this comment,
this guy who
that really irked you,
was really irked the crap out of me. But and check out if you want to revisit the show, we've only got a handful of episodes up so far. A lot of them are Christmas related because I started doing it in December. But our original Rocky episode is up on YouTube. They're slightly edited because for copyright reasons, we had to pull off what was at the top and sometimes what's at the bottom. But the discussion for those episodes are intact. So check them out on YouTube. We're trying to start finally after 11, 12 years or however long we've been doing the show, get a presence on on YouTube. So please support us there.
We still have the original uncut episodes on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts.
We have a Spotify and wherever else you get podcasts. I think we still need to get our Star Wars episode up. But other than that, I think all of our episodes are up.
We had a copyright infringement there with the great Mike Morona, our good friend from Home Alone and Pete, who does Enter the Dragon with us. He came on and did Enter the Dragon.
Our infamous Enter the Dragon episode.
But yeah, we had a little copyright infringement there with his voiceover at the top, which was epic. So we're just trying to figure out how to reframe that. Put that up because it'll be a shame to cut that.
Yeah. So check out the show. We're on YouTube now. The episodes will continue to go up. All the back catalog will continue to go up. We're gonna have some new stuff coming out this year. But
it's like a TV edit, like you're saying. It just starts at the opening music.
Yeah, we just kind of locked off some of the non-show, non-me and Dion stuff at the top and bottom of the episodes.
Because YouTubes are such sticklers for crap, which is unbelievable.
So, and other than that, for me, got Scored to Death. The two Scored to Death books are available on Facebook. Not Facebook. Well, I guess you could maybe find them on Facebook Marketplace. I don't know. Maybe somebody said on there. But they're available on Amazon from other big book retailers or from me directly. Of course, there's the Scored to Death album on mystery color vinyl and also CD. That and copies of the book you can find and buy directly from me at bandcamp.com or scoredtodeath.bandcamp.com. Just Google Scored to Death on Bandcamp, and still working my way through the Scored to Death documentary. And I also have a book, ebook at the moment on Amazon that you can check out. That's a little guide to interviewing people for print podcasts and video. and I forget exactly what it's called, but you can look me up on J. Blake Fischera on Amazon, and you can find that if you're interested. It's a little pocket guide to interviewing, because I've done a lot of it, and I had thoughts, and I thought maybe the things I've learned over the years of doing it, like how to reach people that you want to interview, how to approach, how to record it, all that stuff I try to cover to make that process a little bit easier for people that are trying to interview people for videos, YouTube videos, documentaries, podcasts, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And what do you have going on, Dion?
Et cetera, et cetera. I've got my 2 books, Blood in the Streets and Morris P.I., The Men from Ice House 4. They're both available at brick and mortar shops and on Amazon in paperback, ebook, and audiobook. I'm writing a third. I've been in a funk for a couple of years now trying to get this third one done because it's just hard finding the time, but I'm resolved myself to get it done this year. I set a big Herculean task writing this book to have it be like multiple perspectives, like kind of like a Heat. And I found the drudgery of trying to like get all that and keep it all, linear. So I'm going to get this son of a gun done this year. It's a sequel to the first book, Blood in the Streets. So I'm working on that now, and I occasionally act on the side, which is stuff you can find on YouTube or on my page if you follow it. And you can find me and us and the podcast on YouTube and YouTube, but on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter or X, and wherever else, you ask us questions, engage, write reviews, whatever you want to do.
I started listening to a podcast, Brett Goldstein's podcast, and he asks his listeners to do something which I think is very clever, which is go on Apple or wherever you would write a review. And, if you like it, obviously give us the stars, but tell us your favorite movie.
Oh, that's a good idea.
You don't have to review the show, but tell us your favorite movie.
Yeah, and then maybe we'll do it. Who knows? I mean, there's so much, we have
see
lined
something
up.
on there.
Yeah, there's so much more.
So if you're feeling that, head over to Apple if you like the show, and give us a hopefully a good star review. But also let us know what your favorite movie is. And like Dion said, if we see something that we didn't think of and we haven't done yet, maybe we'll be like, hey, I'm not saying give us requests, but tell us what your favorite movies are.
I used to be the old story with a cover band. I used to see that they'd ask a request and they just wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
So anyway.
But I just think the reviews would be like, I think you should do this, which sound weird, as opposed to like, hey, I really love this.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, okay.
Movie.
You never know. So, well, thank you for listening. Happy 2026, the opening of the season of the 2026 year. And we'll be seeing you real soon. And as the old great Hank Williams used to say, God willing, the creeks don't rise. We'll be hopefully seeing you soon.
Later.
Dion and Blake every Saturday night. Popcorn's popping, the pizza's in sight. Movie marathons till the morning light. Just friends watching movies on a Saturday night. They have been pals since in their teens, with Mega Jolt Cola fueling their dreams, watching childhood favorites on the TV screen, talking endlessly about their favorite scenes. Lights go dim, the screen comes alive. In Dion and Blake's world, nostalgia thrives. Buckets of pizza and endless high fives. Saturday night movie sleepovers are where friendships survive. Lights go dim, the screen comes alive. In Dion and Blake's world, nostalgia thrives. Buckets of pizza and endless high fives. Saturday night movie sleepovers are where friendships survive. Saturday night movie sleepovers. Action flicks. Saturday night movie sleepovers. Part of this. Saturday night movie sleepovers. Saturday night movie sleepovers. Saturday night movie sleepovers. Saturday night movie sleepovers. Saturday night movie sleepovers.